Chapter 91. If I have to move one. A few days later, Cal took in the salty smell as he got off of the carriage. In front of his eyes was the sea that still had a couple whirlpools roaring fiercely. Young Master Nim, it is an honor to meet you. Are you the one in charge? Yes, sir. The Hennetus Territory's representative manager greeted Cal. He was the one responsible for representing the Hennetus Territory, along with the rest of the managers involved in the development of the naval base. There were 3 managers currently located here representing either the Crown, the Ubar Territory, or the Hennetus Territory. The development has picked up as some of the whirlpools disappeared, giving us access to more islands. Really? Yes. Thanks to that, we were able to quickly develop our ships. The Hennetus family had invested a lot of money into the development of this naval base because the Ubar family wanted to keep the Crown's involvement to the minimum. They had wanted a couple of things in return, with one of them being the Hennetus family being able to use a part of the shoreline free of charge. Then shall I guide you over to the residence? No, hold on. Cal looked toward the carriage and motioned with his finger. The carriage door opened and a small, pale person stepped out. Hurry up. Yes, sir. Mueller quickly rushed over and stood between Cal and the manager. Mueller was now chubbier and wearing fancy clothes. The Countess was doing a good job keeping Mueller under control using luxurious goods. Cal put his hand on Mueller's shoulder. Why don't you show him the Phase 1 blueprints? Gasp. Yes, sir. Mueller gasped before quickly handing the blueprint over to the manager. As the manager in charge of the construction of this naval base, the manager was knowledgeable about construction and the sea. Huh. The manager looked at the blueprint for the ship for a moment before looking past Mueller to look at the person the pale Mueller was staring at. Young Master Nim, this? Yes, exactly like that. I've never seen a ship like this before. That made Cal flinch before looking down at Mueller. Cal had been shocked when he first saw the blueprints as well. This bastard isn't also someone who transmigrated from Korea or something, right? Mueller clenched onto the gold ring that the Countess, his mentor of sorts, had given him for support after seeing Cal's angry expression. Cal sighed at Mueller's reaction and then looked toward the manager. But don't you think it'll be good once we build it? More than good. The manager did not finish his sentence. Rather than good or bad, this was amazing. Cal casually moved past the question while looking at the manager who was unable to answer the question. Won't it at least be durable? Yes. It'll be very durable, but it would definitely be durable. However, the manager wanted to ask a question. Is this really a ship for transportation? It looked more like a battleship. However, Cal finished the conversation before the manager could ask. Then that's all that matters. The manager could no longer ask the question and just accepted that Cal just wanted a very durable ship for transportation. He then realized that there may be a different problem. It looks like it would take a significant amount of money to build, especially this golden turtle section. What are you worried about? That problem wasn't a big deal to Cal either. Money isn't a problem. A satisfied smile was on the manager's face. I will do my best to create this masterpiece. Cal avoided the suddenly passionate manager's face and got back on the carriage. I will head to the residence with your subordinate, so you stay here and chat with Mueller. Yes, sir, I understand. Young Master Nim, please rest peacefully. Cal closed the carriage door after seeing Mueller bow 90 degrees. The carriage started to head toward the residence, and the manager could see Mueller's shoulders open up. You see, this ship will not break even if it gets hit by a magic bomb. Yes, it definitely looks like that, but we will probably only be able to make one. Our goal is a single ship. Mueller let out a fake cough. He knew that there was a good chance that he would be in the Hennetus castle as well as this ship, so he had put everything he had into these blueprints so that he would not end up dying. To be honest with you, the second phase of the blueprints, which is for the inside of the ship, is almost complete as well. Mueller shrugged and opened up his shoulders in arrogance. Yes, I have not shown it to the young Master Nim yet, but the concept has been completed. What is the concept? Mueller confidently answered. The greatest defense is a strong offense. Hit before you are hit. Of course, this was just Mueller's own thoughts, as he had not received Cal's permission yet. Cal quietly observed the people gathered in the office once they arrived at the residence. It will not be easy this time. Everybody other than Ron, whom Cal had sent to his room, and Beecrox, who was taking care of Ron, were present. The 3 children averaging 7 years of age, Choi Han, Rosalind, Locke, and even Vice Captain Hilsman and the 10 Wolf children all quickly arrived in Cal's room. Cal had gathered up everyone in his arsenal. It's not like I'm going to go destroy a kingdom or something. Cal felt like it might be too much, but he didn't have enough information about the enemy. It was better to be over-prepared. Rosalind looked toward Cal and started to speak. "Young Master Cal, then are we taking a ship to Ainz Island?" "Yes, we will probably go somewhere around Ainz Island 5. Ainz Island was the term for the group of islands between the western and eastern continent. The numbers represented the order they were discovered. Cal's destination was Ainz Island 5. It was the 5th island to be discovered, as well as the largest island in the group. It was also the closest island to the western continent, making it possible to travel by ship easily. That was why even Ron could go with them. I heard that there is a mermaid base on the island. It is weird that they have a base on top of an island. That is why it is probably one of Arm's bases. This is why it is our first destination. Cal had already decided where they would go. Will be Ainz Island 12. Ainz Island 12 was a very small island that was the 12th to be discovered. It was the closest island to Ainz Island 5. Excuse me, young Master Nim." Vice Captain Hilsman cautiously started to speak. Cal motioned for him to continue. "Didn't you say that we will be fighting against the mermaids? Aren't the whales currently fighting against the mermaids?" "Yes." Hilsman was very serious, unlike his usual goofy self. It was because he knew Ron's life was on the line. Cal continued to observe Hilsman as he recalled what his father had said. "Whether he is an assassin or not, he is still one of my people. Save him. It will not be too late to worry about it after you save his life." Other people may think that Count Daruth was saving just another servant and wonder why he would spend so much effort. However, it was because Ron had watched over Cal for over 10 years while Cal shunned the rest of his family. He was thinking more as a father than as the Count. "Young Master Nim, will we be okay? I heard that the mermaids are creatures of the dark and are currently stronger due to the dead mana and poison." Hilsman was worried about their darkness attribute and the dead mana. Rosalind answered the question instead of Cal. "We will be fine. Young Master Cal knows how to cure the mermaid poison, and we just need to oppress the dead mana with an even stronger power." The usual strategy when fighting against creatures of the dark that used dead mana was to oppress them with a single attack in order to limit the amount of battle time. They needed to use a stronger mana or aura, or even a very strong attack in order to suppress the dead mana. And there was a power that was extremely strong against dead mana. Cal knew about that power. Life. There is a stupid method that would work very well against it. It was actually pretty simple. Living beings were stronger than the dead. There was something that most accurately proved that something was alive. Rosalind started to speak. "Of course, it is most effective to use blood when fighting against creatures of the dark that use dead mana, but that is dangerous." "Yes, blood, and they would need quite a lot of blood. Even a weak human would be able to hold back creatures of the dark for a short amount of time if they sprayed them with their blood. However, there was a high chance that they would die from too much blood loss. You couldn't fight against the strong creatures of the dark using a small amount of blood. Although, blood is useless against dark elves or vampires. Dark elves were still children of nature, as they are living beings with blood, even though they use dead mana, while vampires drink blood on a normal basis. The ancient texts described that the demonic races had dyed human hearts with dead mana in order to make them continue to beat even after the human had died. What crazy nonsense. It sounded crazy to Cal. At the same time, Cal had a sudden thought that he mumbled without thinking about. My blood would probably be extremely effective. His blood was powered by the vitality of the heart. With the regenerative abilities of the vitality of the heart, his blood would have more life than any other blood. The blood would also continue to spurt out without stop, thanks to the vitality of the heart working to resupply blood and heal him. There would be nothing that was more effective against the creatures of the dark than his blood. Although he would need to test it out to be sure, he could probably last a while against the mermaids. Most importantly, ancient powers were powers born from nature and humans. That meant that the vitality of the heart held attributes of both nature and life. There was a good chance that it would be strong against the dark. Cal started to imagine. If I spray my blood? What if he covered himself in blood and spurted his enemies with it? Cal started to frown. How disgusting. It sounded very disgusting. Cal noticed that the room was silent as he looked around. A loud voice suddenly filled the silent room. What a crazy idea. Why would a weakling like you think about such a thing? We do not need your weak blood. Rayon was very angry. I wish you would stop having such weird thoughts. Very weird. It is a very weird thought. On and Hong were looking at Cal like he was crazy. That response made Cal look toward Rosalind, who was also shaking her head. She looked like she was saying that there was no way they would let him do that. There is no need to do that. Cal looked around at everyone and stopped after seeing Hilsman's face, that seemed to be full of admiration for some reason. Cal responded back with a bit of anxiety. Of course I have no plans of doing that. Why would I use my precious blood? He had many cards to play other than his own blood. Why would he use his own blood when he hated pain? He would rather run away than do something like that. He could heal Ron if he just grabbed a mermaid corpse and ran away. Rayon flew over near the couch Cal was sitting on and spoke angrily. I will make sure you don't do such a thing. Nobody believed that he wouldn't do such a thing. Cal scoffed at their reactions, but quickly decided to forget about it. There was no way such a thing would happen, so he didn't feel the need to waste any more of his energy thinking about it. Instead, he stood up. Where are you going? Cal responded to Rayon, the Cliff of Winds, the steepest cliff on this shoreline. Cal headed to that cliff with a whirlpool underneath it. He looked down once he got to the top of the cliff. The shoreline was busy with the construction of the naval base. However, his gaze soon moved away, toward the horizon. What are you trying to do, Calnim? Cal shrugged his shoulders at Choi Han's question before he took out a conch shell that looked like a horn flute out of his magic bag. Choi Han had seen this item before. It was one of the items Cal had received from Witira when they had met the Whale King on their way to the Whipper Kingdom. What? Choi Han thought he might know what Cal was trying to do. Cal put his mouth on the smaller opening of the conch and started to blow. A quiet yet high-pitched noise started to come out before the conch shell was covered with a blue light. It was so quiet that the people down below could not hear it, but there were people far away who were able to hear it clearly. 2 days later, Cal was standing at the Cliff of Winds while watching the sunset. The sun was slowly going down across the horizon. He then suddenly put the still glowing conch shell to his ear. He heard something inside the conch shell. They're here. Rayon pointed toward the horizon as Cal said that and shouted as well. They're here? Ha! Wow! Choi Han, who had assumed this might be the case, let out a gasp while Rosalind, who had no idea, was shocked. Splash, splash. The ocean seemed to be moving far in the horizon. The cause of it was 2 large whales and a smaller third whale. Cal turned around to look at the rest of the group. They were all focused on the red-haired Cal rather than the red sunset. They could see that Cal had a smile on his face. Time to go. Their guides had arrived. Might as well ride the whales if I have to move. Chapter 92. If I have to move too, the large whales swimming across the horizon suddenly disappeared. Instead, a single person appeared in front of Cal. Young Master Cal, long time no see. Good to see you as well, Pazitin. The mixed-blooded whale, Pazitin. Only, the small humpback whale turned into his human form so that he could appear in front of Cal and company. Rayon, Choi Han, and Rosalind were the only ones with Cal on this now dark cliff. Why did you suddenly call for us? Pazitin moved his gaze to the conch shell in Cal's hand. They were in the middle of fighting with the mermaids, but had to come over after hearing Cal's call. The signal Cal had sent was urgent. It was a noise that only the whale beast people could hear. You need our strength already. One of the conditions of Cal's deal with the whales was that he would be able to use their strength. Cal got right to the point in order to answer Pazetten's question. I found out the organization that is helping the mermaids. Excuse me? Cal's unexpected answer made Pazetten's face stiffen up. The whales were already having major headaches from the people who had taken over Ainz Island 5 and were helping the mermaids out in the dark. It was not that they were very strong, but the fact that the mermaids had help was concerning. One of my subordinates was injured badly while figuring that out. I contacted you because we need to quickly take care of his mermaid poison and because I thought you should know the information. However, Pazetten had a question after hearing Cal's comments. Young Master Cal, why were you looking into that? Cal closed his mouth for a second. A rare, awkward smile was on his face, just because I was concerned. Rayon was not invisible but chose to speak into Cal's mind anyway. You're doing it again. However, Cal just ignored it and started to look annoyed. With the mermaids getting stronger thanks to the forest of darkness that is by our territory, I wanted to help somehow, even though I knew the strong whale would be able to take care of it. Pazetten thought that the expression on Cal's face was one of embarrassment. Cal had a similar expression when he had helped get rid of the mermaid poison in his leg. Many emotions quickly went through the handsome Pazetten's eyes. His beautiful eyes were very clear, even underneath the dark night sky. Cal turned his head away. I see. It's not like we are strangers. He casually answered before making eye contact with the others. Rosalind and Choi Han were staring at Cal. Their eyes easily revealed what they wanted to say. Isn't that different than the truth? Pazetten then started to speak. Thank you very much, young Master Nim. You helped us out again after saving my life last time. Cal still didn't look back toward Pazetten. He could see Rosalind and Choi Han asking him with their gazes. When did you save this person? Cal ignored their gazes while Rosalind and Choi Han did not ask their questions aloud. In fact, Rosalind opened her mouth to say something else. Young Master Cal headed over here as soon as he learned of the information. We needed to quickly take care of the mermaid poison, but he thought we needed to let the whale tribe know this information as quickly as possible. Cal showed his thanks with his gaze. This was the first time someone actually helped him pull off a scam. Choi Han just kept his mouth shut and stepped back. I see. I guess we need to bring over a mermaid corpse in order to get rid of the mermaid poison. We will go ourselves. Excuse me? Cal looked back at Pazetten. We are going as well. There was something he needed to do. Of course, the words coming out of Cal's mouth were very different from his actual thoughts. There aren't many of us, so we probably can't participate in the battle, but we want to help out, even if it is just a little. But really, Cal was just planning on doing a hit and run. Even that was enough. Pazetten's pupils started to shake. The whale tribe was currently in the middle of a fierce battle with the mermaids. Of course, they had the advantage since they learned about the dead mana and poison in advance, however. There were a lot of mermaids while the whales had a lot of obstacles in their way because they had to protect the weaker sea creatures while fighting the mermaids. That was why they needed an overwhelming strength. Young Master Nim says they are weak, but Pazetten's gaze headed toward the black dragon. It didn't matter if it was on land, on an island, or even in the sea. What are you looking at, little whale? The cute dragon with short legs wrinkled his nose and started to strike a pose that seemed to say, I am great. Pazetten had seen the dragon's strength before. He had seen that overwhelming power with his own eyes. It is nothing, Dragon Nim. HMPH, I will be going as well. Rayon snorted at Pazetten's respectful response and turned his head away. At the same time, Rayon started to speak into Cal's mind. Did I do a good job, human? Was I great? Cal slightly nodded his head at Rayon. He did well for his age. Cal didn't care about how Rayon was excited about his acting as he started to speak to Pazetten. I will explain on our way there. I want to move as quickly as possible. What do you think? Pazetten answered as Cal expected. We can leave right away. Good. Cal was preparing to leave very quietly late at night. They were not going to depart from the port, as there were many soldiers patrolling the area right now. Cal was currently on the island that was farthest away from the coast. Everyone had moved here earlier during the day. Oh, wow. Pazetin was in awe as he looked at the group. He had expected On and Hong, but there were more people than he expected. He could also feel that they were all pretty strong. Pazetin thought he might have misread because he was one of the weaker whales, but he seemed to be right based on the reactions of the two killer whales that came with him. Archie, long time no see. Archie, the killer whale that served as Whale King Schickler's guard, bowed with a stiff expression. He then turned his gaze away from Cal right away. Cal's gaze, as well as the black dragon staring at him from behind Cal, made him feel odd. Rayon started to speak at that moment. Are we riding this killer whale? Probably. Archie started to frown. Did he hear correctly? Did they say ride? Archie looked toward Pazetin, who quickly looked away before starting to speak. A large ship will be easily spotted, so we will use a medium-sized ship in order to have everyone head out to sea, but since we have limited space in the ship and also have an injured patient, Cal Nim and Dragon Nim, I am Rayon now. Yes, Rayon Nim, as well as some other people, will follow us using levitation magic before landing on the two of your backs. Ho! Archie could not believe what he had just heard. Rayon started to speak at that moment, but killer whales are smaller than humpback whales. Will there be enough space? Killer whales were small in comparison to humpback whales, however, they were still at least 7–10 meters in length. Archie started to frown even more, while the other killer whale soldier that came with them was confused. Archie, thanks in advance. Pat, pat. Cal patted Archie's shoulder and started to smile. Archie felt like Cal was mocking him. At that moment, Archie could hear Pazetin starting to speak once again. For your information, the two of you will have to pull the medium-sized ship as well. It has some magic in it, so we just need to tie it to you. We didn't get any crew members. Why should I deal with such crap? My father said to do anything and everything. Archie shut up after hearing Pazetin's answer. The Whale King was extremely sensitive these days from fighting against the mermaids, so he might really get beaten to death if he made a wrong move. Damn it! Archie looked up at the sky and started to swear. Cal stood there and patted Archie's back. I will be on your back, so please swim safely. Archie had become a living taxi. Splash, splash, Cal observed the night sea while listening to the splashing of water. It was comfortable on the killer whale's back. Tap, tap. Rayon tapped on the killer whale's back. On and Hong were next to Ron on the ship because they were saying that they were scared of the water. However, they also wanted to be near Ron because they seemed to worry about Ron even more than Cal did. Human, the whale's back is slippery. It's supposed to be that way. I see. Rayon had a blank expression as he laid down on the killer whale's back like Cal. Archie, who was known as the strongest killer whale, was larger than most killer whales. He was approximately 12 meters in length, so it felt like a decent-sized building was moving. Cal looked toward the other killer whale next to them. The other killer whale was moving at the same speed. Between Archie and that killer whale was the medium-sized ship that was tied to them with monoropes. Of course, Pazetin was in the front, guiding them. This is like a high-speed taxi. It was very fast. Cal looked at the other killer whale's back. Rosalind and Choi Han were sitting there with odd expressions on their faces, while the seasick Hilsman was busy covering his mouth with his hands. Cal turned away from all three of them because they seemed uncomfortable and instead started to observe the night sky as well as the shining stars. He then started to think, it should be okay to destroy one island, right? Cal enjoyed the peaceful scenery as they arrived at Ainz Island 1. It was because Ainz Island 12 was close to Arm's base on Ainz Island 5. They didn't want the whales to be seen. That was why they came to Ainz Island 1 first and will then move to Ainz Island 12. I will go get my Noonim. Pazetin had a stiff expression as he reported to Cal that he would return with his sister. Cal had informed Pazetin on their way over that the people helping the mermaids were a large organization that even had the balls to lead the Plaza Terror incident in the Rhone Kingdom's capital. Sure, make it fast. Yes, sir. Ainz Island 1 is part of the whale territory, so the mermaids will not come. All right. Pazetin bowed before quickly leaving the island. Archie and the other whale did not even look back as they followed behind Pazetin. Young Master Nim, should I set up the tents? Yes, move Ron once you are done. Yes, sir. The wolf Mies answered confidently before heading over to Locke and Hilsman. Locke, the Wolf King's successor, was currently patting Hilsman's back. Hilsman was busy vomiting from being seasick. Soon enough, Rosalind, Mies, and the rest set up a couple tents near High's Island one coast. Naturally, Cal did not help and simply watched them do all the work. Choi Han was standing in front of Cal because Cal had called him over. Choi Han. Yes, Cal Nim. I think it is better to be selfish than allow any of our people to get hurt. Cal's goal was to quietly get out without getting hurt from the whale's battle with the mermaids. But there is something we must do this time. There was something Cal needed to tell Choi Han before the whales returned. You remember the mage from the Plaza Terror incident? Choi Han's expression stiffened up. The blood-crazy mage, Radhika. Choi Han had cut his arm off. Cal quietly whispered to Choi Han. He is the only one who managed to see Ron's face. There are two things that I believe are most important in this operation. Choi Han made eye contact with Cal. First is to cure Ron of the mermaid poison, and second is to get rid of any potential threat to Ron or any of us in the future. You understand what I mean? Choi Han answered without any hesitation. I will either destroy that mage's other eye or kill him. He then added on. Beacrox will want to do it, but I think it is better for me to do it. He is currently too emotional to be rational. Choi Han knew exactly what he had to do. Ron ended up that way because he did not manage to kill Radhika last time. He had no qualms about killing people anymore. It wasn't that it pained him to do so, but it didn't matter if those bastards died, no. It would be better if those bastards were dead. No, there is no need to overdo it and kill him. I don't have any thoughts about dirtying our hands. It will not be very difficult. Cal knew that Choi Han was a good person, but that he had no qualms about killing. However, Cal did not want to put any blood on his hands if possible. He didn't care if that was unfair. Choi Han, my plan is. It was at that moment. Splash Cal heard a loud splashing noise. Cal closed his mouth as a bloody scent filled his nose. He turned his head toward the water. Wow. There was a person who really used that stupid method to fight. Well, a whale, not a person. The large humpback whale, Watira, the future queen of the whales. She was covered in blood. She seemed to have been fighting against the mermaids using her blood. Young Master Cal, nice to see you again. However, her voice was still very calm. At that moment, Rayon started to speak in Cal's mind. I am great and mighty, so I do not want to use blood like that. And you definitely cannot do that, Rayon was very adamant. Human, hurry up and give me the magic stones. I will make even 100 magic bombs if you want. Cal had hundreds of the highest-grade magic stones that were said to be extremely destructive, as well as Rayon and Rosalind. Choi Han. Cal walked toward Watira as he spoke in a quiet voice that only Choi Han could hear. It was a task for a few people. Aren't you good at stealth? The name of the plan was Reflection. Return everything they received. There was nothing worse or more annoying than having the same thing you did being done to you. Chapter 93. If I have to move 3. Cal did not wait for Choi Han's answer, and instead immediately went to stand in front of the bloody whale. The injuries were made on purpose. There were no large injuries on the whale's body. All of these small injuries would disappear without scarring after using some potions. Looks like you used some blood. Watira's eyebrow raised a bit after hearing Cal's calm voice that showed no worry at all. A bit. I am in the vanguard, so I thought it would be better. Watira fought in front of even the killer whales that were known for their violence. She was also the type to not care about getting hurt. That type of mentality was sometimes needed during wars. While the whale tribe, other oceanic beast people, and the creatures of the sea were fighting against the mermaids, she was in the front spraying her blood in order to push back the mermaids and their dead mana. How awe-inspiring would that be? It was sure to raise the soldiers' morales. Although I have no plans to do such a thing, not getting hurt was the most important thing for Cal. He would do anything, including scamming other people so that he would not get hurt. Shall we go into the tent and discuss? Sure. PSSSSSSSSSSSSSSS. Water vapor started to appear as Watira transformed into her human form and landed on the ground. Scary. She looked very scary as she transformed with her body still covered in blood. Cal slowly moved away from Watira and started to walk toward the tent. "Follow me." "Okay." He entered a different tent than the one Ron was in and got right to the point. "You heard an overview of the situation from Pazetin?" "Yes. We were having a headache because the people helping the mermaids seemed to be strong, but we had no idea that they were such a large organization." Watira started to drink a potion before adding on. Her injuries quickly started to disappear as soon as she drank the potion. "A swordsman and a spearman on a ship have been getting on our nerves the last few days. They would attack us whenever members of our whale tribe or the whales would come up for air." A few days ago, Cal flinched. Watira continued to speak. "The mage using fire magic is annoying too, but that swordsman that keeps sending aura blasts down into the water is the real issue." "Aura? A swordsman sending aura blasts? Isn't that at the swordmaster level? This is different than what I expected. The spearman is also annoying. He seems to have practiced the spear arts of the eastern continent. The strength of his aura is less than the swordmaster, but he was pretty efficient at using it. He seems like he will soon reach the spearmaster level." Another person almost at an equivalent level to a swordmaster. This was very different compared to what Cal was expecting. Cal's pupils started to shake. The enemies were stronger than he had anticipated. Cal looked toward the calm Watira. Although the whales were few in number, the humpback whales with the whale king's bloodline were stronger than Choi Han, and the killer whales were about as strong as Choi Han. The rest of the whales were weaker than Choi Han. Some pretty strong people have come as reinforcement. "Right, but I think it will get easier once we get rid of a good number of the mermaids." The warrior mermaids who have absorbed dead mana were currently avoiding the whales and going around attacking the other sea creatures and oceanic beast people. Cal received a brief report about the current situation from Watira. "Then are the swordsmen, spearmen, and mage focused on attacking the whales?" "Yes. The whale tribe and whales needed to surface every so often, even during battles. The secret organization would not miss that opportunity to attack. None of the whale tribe members have gotten injured, but many of the whale children have been injured." Anger was visible on Watira's face. They may not be beast people, but whales were smart and strong creatures. They were working with the whale tribe in order to fight in the front lines against the mermaids. Many of the children have left this world as well. That was why Watira was trying to kill those people. But she could not go to Ainz Island 5 because the mermaids continued to attack the weak sea creatures and beast people. The whale king Schickler was currently contemplating when to attack Ainz Island 5. "I see." They had received Cal's contact in the process. They were very thankful to hear information about the organization, as well as Cal's comment that he wanted to help them out, even if it was just a little. It would make it easier for them if Cal's group could fight the people who were attacking them from above the water. "Yes, that is why. Although we know we shouldn't ask, it would be a great help to us if young Master Cal lent us a hand." Watira's idea of Cal's help was that he fought with them. However, Cal's plan was slightly different. Cal, who had been quietly thinking for a while, slowly started to speak. "Watira." "Yes, I'm thinking about destroying an island." "Destroy what?" A map opened up in front of the confused Watira. Rayon had opened up a map with his front paw and pointed to a location. "I'm thinking about removing Ainz Island 5 from the map." Cal was speaking seriously. Ainz Islands 115 were approximately 2 to 3 hours distance from each other. According to Ron, there were no other life forms on Ainz Island 5 other than the secret organization. Ships can just sail a bit further to Ainz Island 7. Ainz Island 7 would become the new resting spot for the people using this sea route. Is that even Watira stopped in the middle of speaking because the black dragon was staring right at her. "It is possible, little whale." "Yes, I'm sure it is as you say, Dragon Nim. It was definitely possible." Although Ainz Island 5 was much larger than the Black Swamp, no control was needed as they were trying to destroy it. However, I need 2 things to do it. "What is it?" Watira's still calm demeanor let Cal know that Watira really was from an oceanic tribe. She did not care about the island, a piece of land, disappearing. On the other hand, Cal would have contemplated it for a while before giving up on the idea if there were other creatures living on the island. Actually, there's also a prerequisite prior to those two things. A prerequisite? Yes. We plan on fighting without revealing our identities, especially when we are fighting against that organization. Watira understood what Cal was trying to say. It would be a bad ending if Cal ended up in some terrible situations because he became involved with that organization while helping them. Plus, that was trivial when he was going to destroy the island for them. Yes, I understand. Good, first we need transportation. I will call some whales for you, small ones. Of course, I will focus on agile but stealthy ones. He just needed a small whale for the wolf children. Second. Cal and Watira made eye contact. I need you to go wild. Wild? I need the whales to run wild in order to cause a distraction. Cal casually continued on. Then I will use that moment to destroy Ainz Island 5 and the mermaid base underneath. You want us to draw them out. Will it be fine if we draw out the swordsman, spearman, and the mage? Yes. Ah, Watira suddenly remembered something. The mage has not left the island since the swordsman and spearman have arrived. He hasn't come out unless we got really close to the island. Really? That was perfect. It would be even better if he could blow away that blood-crazy Radicka along with the island. Yes, he seems to be a bit crazy. Watira's face suddenly turned into a frown. Cal felt like he knew the reason. He started to laugh and rush at you when you were using your blood to fight. How did you know? The information we gathered said that he goes crazy because of the color red. Ah, Watira looked toward Cal with concern. Rayon turned his head around to look at Cal so fast that it made a swishing noise. Cal saw the looks on their faces and brushed back his red hair before casually adding on. That is why it will be complicated if I am seen. So that's it, human? I understand. Both the whale and the dragon understood. Watira then started to mumble. That swordsman was weird too. Swordsman. Yes, that woman seemed to have a similar personality. Well, you shouldn't need to worry since you won't need to deal with her. Watira smiled while Rayon had a look of determination on his face. Well, whatever then. Cal just decided not to think about it. He discussed the other details with Watira before saying goodbye and getting ready to send the wolf children and Hilsman off next morning. A whale will guide you there, so be as quiet as a mouse on Ainz Island 12. You have the outfits I gave you, right? Yes, young Master Nim. We have it packed. I will take good care of the children. Cal ignored Hilsman's report and looked toward Locke and Mies. The two boys both nodded their heads. Locke was usually shy, but he was reliable when he was with his younger siblings. A sense of responsibility seemed to change his demeanor. Then go and stay there. Shoot the signal flare if something goes wrong. Yes, sir. The 12 all packed their weapons and got on a teenage whale and a baby whale, both of whom were less than 4 meters in length, and headed toward Ainz Island 12. Cal watched them disappear before speaking to Beecrox. I know you are not happy, but you must be with your father. I understand, young Master Nim. Good. Please save my father. Cal understood how Beecrox must feel, wanting to fight yet not being able to do so. Don't worry. He patted Beecrox on the shoulder before looking at the rest of the group. Rosalind, Choi Han, On, Hong, and Rayon. This group was going to move with Cal. Cal took out multiple black outfits from his magic bag. All right, put these on. Choi Han started to frown. We have to wear these again. It was the black outfit with a red star and 5 white stars around the heart, and the black mask that they had worn in the past when they went to rescue Rayon. Of course, this fake secret organization outfit was slightly different compared to the real one. Yes. Choi Han started to change after hearing Cal's short response. Only the 3 humans changed clothes before Rosalind and Rayon started to gather their mana. We are leaving now. Cal's group flew up into the sky after Rayon's warning. They were heading to Ainz Island 5. Once they quickly flew over to Ainz Island 5, Cal could hear a loud roar. Roar. Fight! Cal looked down to see that the water was full of movement. Splash, a killer whale with an X-shaped scar on his back, shot up above the water before disappearing back underneath. That caused a large ripple in the water. The whale tribe and the whales were doing their job of going wild. Wow, they're really giving it their best. They definitely were doing what they said they would do. Roar, a killer whale shot up into the air with a mermaid in its mouth. The mermaid was already dead. Human, make sure you do not go over there. Yes, Calnim, please stay away. Our youngest is right. Even if you go, don't go alone. Cal snorted at his group's concern. You think I'm crazy. Why would I go there? It was at that moment. Cal looked down after seeing Choi Han look down. They could see that two ships surrounded by magic shields were approaching the whales. A person was standing at the bow of each ship. The blonde woman, who seemed to be the swordsman, was pointing her sword at the ocean. The sword was covered by a golden aura. The swordsman swung her sword and shouted something Cal could not hear. What is she saying? Rayon answered Cal's question as usual. She said, I wonder how beautiful a bloody ocean would be. Lunatic. Watira needs to draw out as many of the secret organization's members as possible from Ainz Island 5. That needed to happen for him to safely and easily run away. Cal, who had been waiting for the whales to run wild and draw people out, suddenly flinched. Bang. The golden aura rushed out of the swordsman's sword and crashed into the water, splitting the ocean into two for a moment. Rayon. What is it, human? Let's hurry over. Cal could feel his heart beating fast. Seeing the strength of the enemy was not good for his health. Chapter 94. If I have to move 4, that whale is pretty good too. That whale, Cal looked down again. There was a woman darting through the parted water. The small whale is sort of good too. There was a man following behind her. It was Watira and Pazetin. The siblings wielded a whip and sword respectively as Watira rushed toward the swordsman and Pazetin rushed toward the spearman. The two were rushing forward while spraying blood as Cal had expected, quickly rushing toward their targets. Choi Han. Yes, Cal Nim. Watch them carefully. Choi Han continued to observe without answering back. Flick. Watira's whip clashed against the swordsman's sword that was covered in her golden aura. Bang. A blue light was around Watira's whip. It was the unique power of the whales, utilizing the power of the ocean to attack. Watira's blue aura was just as strong as the swordsman's golden aura, which made it very obvious that she was fooling around when battling against Tunka. Don't worry. Choi Han will not lose. Rosalind will not lose either. Rayon made that proclamation before increasing his speed even more. Cal looked toward Choi Han and Rosalind, who both smiled back at him. Do not worry. Choi Han and I will not get hurt, even if things do not go as planned. Even if things do not go as planned, Cal was planning on taking care of it with the people wearing the masks. One of Cal's goals was to get rid of any potential issues that would make things dangerous for them in the future. Things will become complicated if Rayon is revealed. Since they could not get rid of the organization completely right now, because they didn't know the location of the organization's headquarters, things would become very complicated if any of them saw Rayon and managed to live to tell the rest of the organization. However, Rosalind and Choi Han had misunderstood Cal's gaze. She is right, Cal Nim. I will not get hurt. I'm more worried about me getting hurt. Cal could not say anything. However, On shook her head while laying in Cal's arms to show that Choi Han and Rosalind were wrong. On tapped on Cal's arm. I don't think you will get hurt. You do not need to worry. On knew the truth about what Cal was thinking. However, this 10-year-old's pitiful gaze was not to Cal's liking either. He just pretended not to hear On and instead urged Rayon on, even faster. All right, human. A moment later, Cal was floating above Ainz Island 5. Rosalind started to speak. The traps and alarm magic are around the coast, as Mr. Ron mentioned. The flow of mana is focused on those areas as well. There are none in the air, Rayon added on. Rayon had a pretty smug expression on his face that seemed to say that Rosalind was a smart human mage. However, it was ironic, as Rayon had learned human magic from Rosalind. Will it be possible to get past the magic and barge into the building? Cal opened up the map he drew based on Ron's description as he asked. Since Ron could not draw it himself due to the effects of the poison, Cal drew it based on what Ron described, with Ron verifying the details as they went. It might be a bit difficult. That mage bastard has secured their base with layers after layers of magic. Choi-hen let out a fake cough. Radhika was probably very focused on security after almost dying last time. Really? Then it was simple. Then do like we planned and don't touch the base as you plant the magic bombs. Rayon had created these magic bombs. Since Rayon's mana was the signal for them to explode, Rayon needed to focus on the 10 magic bombs for them to go off. The reason he was able to use magic in addition to detonating the bombs in the Black Swamp was because there were only 2 bombs. These bombs were much stronger than those because of the highest grade magic stones, and thus required Rayon's full attention to control them. It also didn't help that they needed to make these bombs quickly and on the fly. Then, where should we put all 10 bombs? Cal showed the map to the group at Rayon's question. They could see a total of 10 points on the map. You can put one in each of these spots. Rosalind looked at the 10 points before opening her mouth and then closing it back again. She started to think while looking at Cal and Rayon. Highest grade magic stones. Rayon's magic bombs were extremely scary weapons of war that were many times stronger than the current bombs used during war. The strength of magic bombs relied on the quality of the magic stones, and these bombs were made with highest grade magic stones. Rosalind had been in awe of the mana gathered inside a highest grade magic stone she had seen when she was still the next in line for the throne of Breck Kingdom. Just where did young Master Cal find these magic stones? However, Cal took out those precious items without any comment and handed them to Rayon. Those 10 magic stones alone were enough to make Cal very wealthy. Rosalind was shocked at Cal's willingness to use them. However, this was because she did not know that Cal had hundreds of these highest-grade magic stones. The items in Cal's possession were probably worth more than most decent merchant guilds right now. Then we will split into 2 groups to do it. Reap. The map was ripped in half, and Cal handed one half to Rosalind. You 2 take care of this half. Choi-han and Rosalind nodded their heads. Cal then looked toward Rayon. They landed on a quiet cliff that was on the opposite side of where the whales were currently fighting. Cal could see a vibrant forest as he stood with the cliff to his back. Russell? Cal lowered his mask as he took a small step forward. All they could see were his eyes. It was the same for the others. We gather back here. Cal's group dispersed across Ainz Island 5, nothing nearby, Russell. Cal was currently running through vines and tall grass that had grown tall and thick without any animals to damage them on the island. Tap, tap, tap. On and Hong were jumping through the trees next to Cal. On was already creating fog around them, just in case it was needed. It is here. Cal stopped moving after hearing Rayon's voice. Cal was responsible for the east side of the base in the middle. Cal took the magic bomb out of his pocket and buried it into the ground. His movements were very cautious. I'm dead if this blows up on me. The bomb used in the Black Swamp was already extremely strong, but this bomb was made with even better ingredients. That was why it was possible for it to destroy Ainz Island 5 and the mermaid base underneath. A coward would not be able to do this. Cal thought that not coming to a battlefield like this was the right answer as he carefully moved the bomb. Let's hurry up. Human Rayon shouted into Cal's mind, but Cal remained meticulous as he buried the bomb. They then started to move again. 2 whirlwinds were surrounding Cal's feet as they moved. There are humans nearby. Cal came to a stop and motioned to On and Hong. On made the fog thicker while Cal kicked off the ground and jumped on top of the tallest tree. He then looked around. What's with this fog? Who knows? The weather is constantly changing because we are by the water. Cal's current location was by the base's food storage warehouses. The 2 secret organization members were pretty tense, even though they were speaking casually. Their eyes were constantly looking around to look for any intruders. Human, should we fight them? Cal shook his head at Rayon's question. Why should we fight them? Everybody else always seemed to want to fight when they came across an enemy like this, however, Cal did not want to do that at all. He didn't want to get the enemy's attention. Cal cautiously came down from the tree without making any noise and took out the invisibility magic device. Sigh, weak human, you live such a difficult life. Cal didn't care what Rayon had to say as he activated the invisibility magic device and carefully started to dig. On and Hong sighed before helping him dig. It was at that moment. Beep, beep, they could hear an alarm going off in the distance. Huh, isn't this the emergency distress signal? Do we have intruders? Hurry up and go take a look. I need to stay there. All right. Sigh. Cal let out a deep sigh. The life of a main character always revolved around fighting the enemies. Cal pitied Choi Han's life as the main character as he continued to install the bomb. Did Rosalind and Choi Han get discovered? There was no need to ask such an obvious question. On and Hong started to dig faster. However, Cal continued at his slow pace. I'm sure they'll be fine. It would make it easier for Cal to move if the attention was focused on the west. Human, hurry up. They might find us too. Rayon continued to urge him to go faster, but Cal slowly and leisurely finished installing all of the bombs. It was all thanks to Choi Han and Rosalind causing a ruckus, although he was pretty sure that it was probably just Choi Han who caused it. It's fine as long as their identities aren't revealed. The two of them will make sure to keep it that way. Cal installed the last bomb and returned to their original location. Someone familiar was underneath the cliff. Long time no see, Archie. The killer whale, Archie, flinched. He was surprised at Cal's outfit. It was similar to those who were helping the mermaids. Why are you wearing? Never mind, please get on for now. Cal lightly jumped off the cliff. It would be difficult for Rayon to keep all three of them floating in the air while controlling 10 bombs and making sure that nothing else is harmed. That was why Cal had called this superspeed taxi over. The rest will come soon, too. Archie looked toward Cal with a suspicious gaze instead of answering. His gaze seemed to be asking if they were really going to destroy the island. However, he did not have a chance to ask any questions. Catch them! We have to kill them! They could hear someone's angry shout. Cal flinched and made sure his hair was fully covered after hearing the familiar voice. No, don't let them jump. At that moment, 2 people wearing the same black outfit as Cal jumped off of the cliff. Some more people wearing similar outfits soon appeared at the top of the cliff. They were the real secret organization members. Cal could see the blood-crazy mage, Radhika, among the group. Oh, you did it. Choi Han had an awkward smile at Cal's statement. Radhika was being supported by his subordinates. His left eye was wrapped up, while his right eye was currently bleeding. I ran into him while installing a bomb. Tell me later. Cal stopped Choi Han from speaking and instead commanded Archie. Hurry up and go. Archie started to move quickly after seeing Radhika and the other members of the secret organization. He seemed to be excited at seeing Radhika injured. Cal urged him on some more. Move even faster. Get as far as possible. They needed to at least get to a point where Hai's Island 12 was visible. It was the closest island to Hai's Island 5, but it was still a good distance away. At that moment, Rayon started to speak. Looks like someone found the bombs. Choi Han lowered his head even more. The secret organization members probably found the bombs while looking for them. Cal patted Choi Han's shoulder as he gave the order. Start. All right. Rayon started to gather mana in his front paws. Cal looked toward Rosalind. Please put up the strongest shields you can and make sure to include Archie inside. Of course. Rosalind started to create her shields. A total of 2 shields were created. Cal could see the whales continuing the battle with Watira in the lead to their east. Cal felt like he made eye contact with Watira, even though she was very far away. Splash! Watira flicked her whip onto the water. The waves started to rage, and Watira used that opening to move back. The whales that were running wild previously were now quickly running away. Everybody was finally out of the range of the bombs. Preparations are complete. Cal made eye contact with Rayon. He gave the order to Rayon, who was waiting for the go-ahead. Explode. Ooh-woong. The black mana that was gathered by Rayon's paws shot out like arrows. The 10 rays of mana rushed toward the island like streaks of light. Cal covered his ears. Bang, 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 the ocean started to shake. Chapter 95. If I have to move 5. Ugh, everybody hold on to my body, Archie shouted urgently. The waves produced by the bomb were still dangerous, even though they were outside of the explosion's range. Cal, along with everyone else, quickly laid down flat to hug Archie. Cal looked toward the source of the loud noise behind the tall waves. Boom, goo, woo, 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 splash. A bright light rushed out of the island in the midst of all of those noises. Cal could see that a black smoke had taken its place once he could open his eyes again. All sorts of debris were flying out from within the black smoke. Cal's jaws dropped. This. It looked like the whole island was floating away as it broke down into small particles of dust. Is much stronger than I expected. He had never expected this much explosive power, even though he knew that the bombs would be stronger than average. He did claim that he would destroy the island, but the impact of the explosion on the ocean was huge. Rayon, who looked calm and composed, tilted his head in confusion. Wasn't this what you wanted, human? I thought you meant it when you said you wanted to destroy it. That's why I fortified the bombs a couple more times. This was the result of a miscommunication. There was no need to fortify those strong bombs. Cal continued to hold onto Archie's back tightly as he looked around the destroyed island. All he could see was the black smoke where the island used to stand. Move farther back. Archie flinched before quietly moving as Rayon instructed. Cal could not take his eyes off of the ocean. The black smoke slowly started to dissipate, and the island reappeared. Goo-woo-woo-woo, the cliff that they were standing on earlier was slowly crumbling. It was like dominoes after that. The entire island soon started to sink into the ocean. It was faint because they were far away, but Cal could hear both humans and mermaids screaming. Splash. The water rippled as Watira shot up into the air. Attack! Following the large humpback whale's command, the whale tribe, whales, and the oceanic beast people all rushed toward the crumbling island. The people escaping from the island needed to face Watira's whip. What a terrible sight. It was a selfish thought, and he was the one who caused this to happen, but he felt uncomfortable looking at the mess. That was why he just wanted to live a peaceful life. Cal's eyes grew cloudy as he looked out toward the ocean. The way he was looking out made it seem like there were a lot of complicated emotions going through his mind. Rayon started to speak at that moment. It is a problem that you're so compassionate, but that is also your strong suit. What? Compassionate? Cal was shocked. Would a compassionate person think about destroying an island? Rayon continued to speak. We did the right thing for that old human, as well as for Beecrox, who helped out with my revenge. That did not necessarily mean it was the right thing, but Cal wasn't the type to always do the right thing. Plus, didn't you say they were part of the organization that handed me over to the Marquis? Even if they are not the actual people who did that, they are all the same. Cal looked up at the sky after hearing Rayon's words. He then patted the killer whale's back. Let's go. Archie quietly moved toward Ainz Island 12. I guess there wasn't a need for Locke or the children to get involved. Indeed. Cal could see Ainz Island 12 as he responded to Choi Han. He could see the wolf children with the whales. Choi Han, who had been looking at them as well, started to frown. Cal Nim, did you order them to stay like that? Yes. Choi Han looked toward the wolf children before shutting up at Cal's stern response. He was just thankful that there wasn't a need for them to get involved. Ainz Island 12 was about 1/3 the size of Ainz Island 5. The large killer whale quickly approached the small island. Now I just need to wait for Watira to bring over a mermaid corpse. Cal was pretty satisfied with the results of this operation. It was at that moment. I'm going to kill you? Cal turned his head. Rayon immediately spoke into Cal's mind. I am going invisible. Why so suddenly? That bastard. He could hear Choi Han's angry voice. At the same time, Cal finally figured out what was going on. Son of a... He could see something red flying toward them using levitation magic. I'm going to kill you. You must die. It was Ridicka. The blood-crazy mage bastard was accurately flying toward the killer whale, Archie. Although his right eye was injured, he still seemed to have some sight. The blood-crazy bastard was covered in blood as he was flying toward them. However, his flight was very unstable. It was probably because he was controlling the mana with only one hand. Rosalind chimed in at that moment. He seems to be in a state of mana explosion. What? Mana explosion was a technique that people who handled mana used by putting their lives on the line. Ridicka seemed to have truly gone crazy. One arm and eye weren't enough for you? You crazy bastard, I'm going to kill you. Ridicka was only looking at Choi Han. He was crying bloody tears as he continued to fly toward them. Sai, still saying the same thing. Choi Han sighed before standing up on Archie's back. What the hell is going on? Cal let out a sigh. He was not afraid of Radhika. Choi Han could even fight off a dragon that had used mana explosion, so why would he worry about Radhika? In fact, it was better to get rid of him completely. However, Cal was looking past Radhika. Why is that headed over here? A ship that had broken sides was moving toward Ainz Island 12. To be more specific, it was heading toward Cal's group that was sitting on top of Archie's back. The ship with the golden aura using swordsmen was heading toward them. Your subordinates and organization members are either running away or dying, so why aren't you going to help them? That was what Cal wanted to ask. Who are you? The swordsman asked, but Cal did not respond. He didn't have a reason to respond to her. Cal looked around and saw that nobody else was coming toward them. The whales seemed to be caught up with the mermaids. Should I fight? Cal patted Archie's back in order to say no to the suddenly respectful Archie. I will do it. Rosalind stood up. Blue mana was swirling slightly above her hand. Choi Han bit his lips while turning his gaze to look at the swordsman. This swordmaster-level woman seemed to be someone he should fight. Rosalind continued to speak at that moment. Choi Han, you take care of that mage. I will handle the swordsman. Rosalind was a genius mage who was already close to the highest tier a mage could achieve. Of course, I don't think I can defeat her, but I will be able to hold her back. Rosalind ignored Choi Han's gaze and looked toward Cal. That should be enough, right, young Master Cal? She didn't know why, but the fact that Rayon turned invisible made it seem like it would be difficult for Rayon to help in this battle. In that case, she just needed to step up. Miss Rosalind, let's fight together. Excuse me? He's going to fight with me. Rosalind looked toward Cal with shock. However, Cal was looking toward Ainz Island 12. She had misunderstood Cal's words. He never said that he would be the one to fight with her. Cal shouted toward the island. Go! Yes, sir. He heard some energetic responses from the island. 12 people soon got on the small whale and headed toward them. The two slightly larger whales that were waiting at Ainz Island 12 followed behind them as well. They swam past Archie and toward the ship. Why, you crazy bastards? One of the crew members on the ship started to shout. Cal shrugged his shoulders at Choi Han before responding. Are they the only secret organization? We are also a secret organization starting now. The wolf children, who were all wearing black masks and black outfits with 1 red star and 5 white stars on their chests, rushed toward the ship. Cal didn't know when they got used to it, but they seemed to be able to move freely on the whales. It was fitting for the physically gifted wolf tribe. You go as well. Miss Rosalind, you too? Choi Han and Rosalind looked at each other before each saying one thing to Cal and then heading off. I will be back soon. Please stay safely hidden, Cal Nim. Young Master Cal, be careful. The killer whale, Archie, looked toward them in disbelief but kept his mouth shut. Choi Han landed on one of the other 2 whales and headed toward Radhika while Rosalind used levitation magic to head toward the ship. Kill, kill, kill. I'm going to kill you. Who the fuck are you? Radhika was shouting while flying in an unstable manner and shooting out his magic. However, Choi Han used his aura to destroy all of the attack magic before it reached him. Who are you? The swordsman's voice reached Choi Han's ear. At that moment, the swordsman swung down with her sword and an aura blast that looked like a boomerang shot out toward Rosalind. Shield. Blink. Rosalind easily dodged the attack before shooting a fire orb back. The swordsman dodged, but the orb crashed into the ship's deck. Bang! A part of the ship broke off. Rosalind used this moment to toy with the swordsman who was covered in her golden aura. I'm not sure. Who do you think we are? You can't tell? Choi Han heard Rosalind teasing the swordsman before blinking his eyes and shouting toward Radhika. We are the secret organization? Sigh. Cal let out a sigh after hearing Choi Han's loud voice. He didn't mean for him to say it out loud like that. But it didn't matter as long as they kept their identities a secret. Archie, let's get closer to the island. Yes, sir. Archie watched Choi Han, Rosalind, and the wolf children on the whale fighting the members of ARM as he slowly headed toward Ainz Island 12. Archie couldn't help but think that Cal's group was really strong. Bang! He heard something breaking and someone screaming, but it was not one of Cal's people. Archie couldn't help but wonder how such strong people were all serving one person. I will make you bleed as well. Ugh, I'm going to kill you. Radhika must have been having trouble with his levitation magic, as he floated very close to the water while casting his attack magic toward Choi Han. However, Choi Han was still able to easily handle all of Radhika's attacks with his aura. Show me what you got. I'll play with you. Choi Han confidently answered back before moving even closer to Radhika. He was moving very slowly, as if he was cornering this blood-covered human who was slowly losing his rationality from the mana explosion. Ugh, die! Radhika's mana shot out like it was exploding. Choi Han kicked off the whale in order to dodge. Bang! Ainz Island 12 was hit by Radhika's blast and some rocks shot up into the air. Choi Han didn't care as was currently rushing toward Radhika. Rosalind was in a similar situation. Wow, Unni, you are so strong. Right, I am a pretty strong mage. Rosalind and the swordsman seemed to be casually fighting. However, the ship continued to break as the two continued their battle. Archie was amazed that such strong people were all gathered together. However, Archie could not cover the shocked expression on his face at what happened next. Young Master Cal, what are you doing? Cal pretended not to hear Archie's voice as he climbed off of Archie's back. Splash! He jumped into the water that was about chest level. Cal then moved to hide behind the large killer whale. The invisible rayon was currently hanging on Cal's back. Human, is there a reason you need to hide behind this whale? Of course. I won't be seen if I hide behind something this big. Cal did not respond to Rayon's question and only said what he needed to say. Let's destroy it. Archie flinched after hearing Cal's voice, again. You're going to destroy something else, but Rayon was still calm. All right, human. Archie flinched again. He couldn't see the dragon, but he had definitely just heard him. The small dragon said that he was going to destroy it. Archie just kept his mouth shut. Let's give them what they deserve. Rayon decided to punish the members of the organization. That was the reason he was abused for his first 4 years. Ooh-woong, holy crap. Archie, who was planning on keeping his mouth shut, could not help but speak. A large number of thin and small mana arrows filled the sky. At that moment, Choi Han cut off Radhika's right arm and watched it fall into the water. The blonde swordsman looked up toward the sky. Unni, you have another mage as well. Didn't I tell you we are a secret organization? The swordsman started to gather her golden aura as much as possible. Rosalind scoffed at her before saying just one thing. Retreat. The whales quickly started to retreat. However, there was no need to do that. Fire. The moment Cal instructed, the numerous mana arrows all fired accurately toward the ship the swordsman was on. Retreat. The blonde swordsman shouted as her golden aura shot out toward the arrows. However, her golden aura was not strong nor wide enough to defend against hundreds of arrows. Dragons really are mighty. Cal was in awe as he watched the remaining arrows hit the ship. Bang, bang, boom. Many different noises of explosion filled his ear. Translator's note. Unni is the Korean term for older sister when said by another girl. It has a similar definition as Nuna, but from a girl to a girl rather than boy to girl. Chapter 96. If I have to move 6. Rayon responded as Archie let out a dig that actually sounded more like a compliment. Crazy. Naturally, the ship was damaged significantly, however, it wasn't completely destroyed. That swordsman is pretty strong. Rayon's assessment was spot on. The swordsman was amazing. She was able to send out another boomerang-shaped golden aura which destroyed more of Rayon's mana arrows. There were still enough to pretty much destroy the ship, though. Ugh, ugh. Radhika's body was shaking. Choi Han quietly observed the now armless mage. I guess he'll die. Cal was observing Radhika, who was nearing the end of his mana explosion. He assumed Choi Han would not do anything else since Radhika would soon die. But he was wrong. Spurt. Blood splattered everywhere. Choi Han had swung his sword one more time at Radhika's right eye. Cal turned away as he didn't want to see that sight. However, he was now looking at the ship that was continuing to crumble. Boom! The ship was breaking apart, starting from the bow. However, Cal clicked his tongue while watching the destruction. There was another one left, as I expected. At the same time, Cal was shocked. He was a magic spearman. Human, you didn't know? Yeah, I didn't. I see. A magic spearman was someone who used both magic and spears. Although the spearman was not at the spearmaster level, he could use magic. The spearman, who had not been using magic very much while he had been on the island, flew over using levitation magic to save just one person. Only the blonde swordsman flew up from the rubbles of the ship. Please save us too. The members of the organization who were still alive shouted toward the spearman, but the spearman did not even turn to look at them. He just looked toward Radika. Pretty strong. Cal could feel the strength of the secret organization. If this magic spearman can use levitation magic on 2 people, he was at least at the upper middle tier mage level. He was both an upper middle tier mage and a spearman who was close to reaching the spearmaster level. Do not worry. He is still weaker than Choi Han. I know. It's just that he is stronger than me. Silence suddenly filled the area. Rayon finally started to speak after a while. Stronger than you, MM. It is kind of obvious that, MM, there are many people stronger than you, so do not be too upset. Cal wanted to say something back to Rayon, but could not do so. Bang! Scary. A golden aura hit Radika's body, which exploded on impact. Cal could see Choi Han retreating on a whale while sending out an attack with his black aura. However, it did not reach the magic spearman and swordsman in the air. A frowning Choi Han tried to swing his sword one more time as Rosalind slowly floated up into the air. The 2 of them peeked toward Cal, but could not call out to him. The silence continued. No, the screams of the people on the burning boat continued. Rosalind and Choi Han were ready to attack the magic spearman and blonde swordsman at any moment. It was at that moment. Splash, they could hear water splashing. Watira, as well as some of the whale tribe members, were swimming their way. How disappointing. That's why I said we should just run. The spearman sounded annoyed as he responded to the swordsman. He then looked toward Choi Han, Rosalind, and the wolf children. They were all still wearing masks. I can't tell who they are. Maybe you'll find out if we fight some more. The spearman saw the blue mana swirling on top of Rosalind's palm and shook his head. It'll be a draw at best. Flick! Bang! The large blue whip landed on the water. At the same time, Watira used the recoil of the whip to jump into the air. The spearman summoned a 5-colored magic scroll that made Rosalind certain it was covered in highest-grade magic stone powder. No! Rosalind followed Watira and headed for the 2 enemies. Choi Han's black aura also shot toward them like a bullet. However, the spearman ripped the scroll in half before their attacks could reach them, and both he and the swordmaster-level swordsman started to turn transparent. It was a long-distance teleportation scroll. The blonde woman frowned as she parried Choi Han's aura with her own aura. A small explosion occurred, and she used that moment to wave toward Choi Han and Rosalind. Bye-bye, anonymous people. She then looked toward the angry-looking Watira and started to smile. So sad. Watira started to frown even more. Crackle, the usual noise of a magic scroll being activated, occurred as the 2 people seemed to be almost completely transparent now. Cal was at a loss of words. What a stereotypical villain's escape. However, not everyone was just sitting around. Ugh. The magic spearman coughed up blood. An arrow had pierced through his stomach. The small mana arrow that flew from behind him was still spiraling in the spearman's body. The injury was slowly being opened wider. Appa, why, you bastards? The blonde woman, who was calm until now, suddenly became angry. Crackle, however, the magic scroll fully activated at that moment, and the 2 of them disappeared. No more noise could be heard. Ah! Rosalind let out a gasp, and Watira's whip passed through where the 2 enemies had been standing. Choi Han was biting down on his lips as he looked toward the small remains of Radika. At that moment, Cal, who was just peeking his head out from behind Archie, heard a voice from behind him. I did it. Rayon casually answered. A trace of my mana will remain in that magic spearman's body, even if he heals the injury. Only another dragon will be able to locate it. I will kill him immediately if he comes near us again. Everybody looked toward Rayon. The killer whale Archie flinched, while Cal started to clap. Rayon really is amazing. If it was possible to know when he was near, it gave them a way to prepare for the secret organization. Of course, there should be no more interactions with them since they had no idea about the identity of Cal's group. But it didn't hurt to have extra protection. Yes, I am amazing. Rayon shrugged. There was a reason Rayon had left the trace of his mana. Just by looking at the two enemies was enough to know that there were a lot of strong people within the organization. Dragons enjoyed overpowering strong people. I will wait until I am a bit bigger. What did you say? It is nothing, human. Cal did not hear what Rayon had said, but Archie definitely did. Archie suddenly had a feeling of fear. The black dragon in front of him was young, but he recalled the stories that he had heard about the adult dragons that could use dragon's breath. The whales had heard stories that were passed down through the generations that the history of the continent would change if an adult dragon became completely and thoroughly enraged. Cal slowly started to walk toward the island. Splash, splash. Witira approached him once he got close enough to where the water was only at his ankles. Her two subordinates were behind her. Sorry, young Master Cal. We couldn't focus on them because we wanted to get rid of the mermaids. That's okay. It's not like we couldn't handle them. We will take care of the rest. Good. Cal nodded his head as he took another step toward the island. Witira felt apologetic after seeing the slightly annoyed expression on Cal's face. She felt like she got him involved in an unnecessary mess. That was why she had her subordinates quickly hand over the thing he had asked for. Here is what you asked for. Oh, okay. It was the mermaid corpse. It was very clean, just like it was when it was still alive. Cal had asked Witira to bring over one of the strong mermaids that had absorbed dead mana. Who is it? One of the mermaid royalty. He never expected her to bring over a mermaid royalty in corpse form. Okay, we can go heal him right away. Any mermaid would have worked to get rid of the poison, but a strong mermaid's blood would make it faster, as well as make the future recovery much easier. The poison in Ron's body may not have spread everywhere yet, but he still had been dealing with the poison for a while. That was why Cal wanted to do whatever he could to get rid of it without leaving any problematic issues behind. This was the reason why he had asked Witira to find a corpse rather than Cal's group finding it themselves. You don't have a solution for the arm right now. Healing was possible if he still had the detached arm. However, Ron didn't have the arm, and even if he did, it was probably rotting by now since so many days had passed since it was cut off. But there is a method. The real arm was impossible, but a similar one was possible. They needed a necromancer, those who deal with corpses. Necromancers were anatomists and technicians. It would be weird if they weren't anatomists or technicians, since they mainly put corpses together for their use. Cal was certain that a necromancer that everybody believed to have disappeared was still on the western continent. The problem is that I don't know where they are. Cal had no idea about it, because it was never discussed in the novel. That was why he decided to think about that later. Commander Archie and the whales will take you to Ainz Island 1. Okay. You all still have things to do, right? The whale tribe probably didn't want to miss this opportunity now that the mermaid's reinforcement was gone. That was why Whale King Schickler was not here and was instead still chasing down some mermaids. Yes, they were escaping to the east. We will chase after them to the end. The phrase, to the end, sounded vicious. Cal asked without thinking much about it. Will you obliterate the mermaids? No. This might sound funny, but the balance will be destroyed if they are all gone as well. We need to keep them alive, but we'll keep them in check. The whale tribe is a very scary tribe. Witira did not respond and instead just smiled back at Cal. Cal did not like this smile very much. Although he shouldn't speak since he had helped the whale tribe by blowing up the island, the whale tribe had a tendency to think that they were the greatest tribe alive. It made sense why the mermaids would hate the whale tribe that ruled the ocean under the name of peace. But there were always two sides to a story, not my problem. Cal was someone who only moved based on what benefit he could gain from each situation. Thinking about this would not benefit him, so there was no point in thinking about it. Then I am going to go now. We are in a bit of a hurry. They needed to quickly heal Ron now that they had the necessary ingredient. Cal arrived at Ainz Island 1 and quickly entered the tent. Ron. Young Master Nim, Croc stood up and looked toward Cal. He saw Choi Han and Hilsman coming in with the mermaid corpse and closed his mouth. Ron was sleeping. The assassin was not aware that people had arrived. Sigh. A deep sigh came out of Cal's mouth. A pile of highest-grade potions was sitting next to Ron's bed. Crocs, remove the covers? Yes, sir. Can you lend me a glove? Crocs, who was removing the blanket, suddenly flinched. He started to speak without looking at Cal. Are you going to personally do it? Crocs quietly observed his father's face as he recalled what his father had told him. Ron had told Crocs how strong the organization, arm, was every time he was awake. He heard Cal's confident response at that time. Yes, I will do it. Crocs took a white glove out of his pocket and handed it to Cal. Cal put it on and inspected Ron's infected areas. The poison seemed to have settled down a bit after being doused in highest-grade potions. Cal motioned to Choi Han, who quickly brought the mermaid corpse over. The corpse cast a shadow over Ron's body as Cal took out a dagger and cut open the mermaid royalty's corpse. Drip, drip. The mermaid's blood started to drip 1 to 2 drops at a time before spurting out. Cal guided the corpse to make sure that the blood landed on Ron's sides and thigh. He then cut the corpse in other places as well in order to hit all of the infected areas. Crocs, pour a highest-grade potion. Yes, sir. Sizzle. The potion, mermaid blood, and mermaid poison mixed with each other and started to sizzle. However, they could see that the mermaid blood that was mixed with the highest-grade potion was evaporating the poison. Ooh, ugh. Ron started to groan. His eyelids started to shake. It was because the mermaid poison that was deep in his body was starting to disappear. Ron's eyes slowly started to open. Young Master Nim, stop talking, I am busy. Ron still continued to ask, are you healing me right now? Yes. Cal verified that the sticky poison that was stuck to Ron's body was gone before looking toward Ron. The poison is gone. Now you just need to recover. I see. Cal took off the now bloody white glove and threw it into the fire. Ron. Yes, young Master Nim. Ron looked back at Cal. Crocs was looking at Cal as well. There is nobody left in that organization that knows your face. You know what I mean, right? Cal turned away from the fire in order to look at Ron as he continued. It means it is now time to go home. The poison was gone and the person who took Ron's arm was no longer in this world. That was why Cal was saying that they could now go back to the Hennetus estate. The word home made Ron slowly close his eyes. Yes, young Master Nim. Cal nodded his head and patted Crocs' shoulder. Crocs had been holding his father's hand since earlier. We will start Ron's recovery as soon as we get back. That was the last thing Cal said before leaving the tent. He could see the endless ocean and sky. After working hard all day, it was now night time. The night sky over the ocean had a way of making people emotional. I guess I'll finally get to rest for a bit. Cal started to smile. They'll need to deal with Ron's recovery, but at least Ron was still alive. Cal was thinking that he could now enjoy the slacker life at home for a bit. Young Master Nim, you're back. Long time no see, Hands. Hands greeted Cal with a bright expression. Young Master Nim, what about Mr. Ron? The poison is gone. Oh, wow, thank you very much. Why are you thanking me? Everything has been fine while I was gone. Yes. There is nothing to report. After seeing that Hands did not seem worried at all, Cal believed that he would be able to live the slacker life once again, even if it was only for a year. Well, at least that was what he thought. Chapter 97. I got a feeling one month later. Cal got to relax for exactly 1 month. Honestly speaking, it was slacking off in his point of view, but everybody else saw it differently. Is he bored? Rayon was observing Cal, who was blankly staring out the window and eating summer fruits. Rayon's face was serious. How could he not be worried? Cal was rocking on a rocking chair for the last 2 hours while looking out the window and eating fruits. He didn't say a word or even frown. He was plucking grapes one at a time to eat before just blankly staring out the window now. Weird, very weird. Now the slightly older kitten Hong was wagging his tail next to Rayon while observing Cal. Unfortunately, the two of them were rolling around on the bed and pretty far from Cal, who was by the window. He did not hear what they were saying. He wakes up later and later every day. He is also eating less and less. He then goes to sleep earlier and earlier. He's barely moving these days. Rayon had a serious expression as he shared his observations with Hong. He then started to frown some more. He's sleeping again? Plop, the grape in Cal's hand fell to the ground. Cal had once again fallen asleep while rocking in the rocking chair. Rayon's eyes started to shake. He was sleeping more, eating less, and not moving. This must mean... Is he sick? Hong's expression became serious as well as his ears perked up. No, that's bad. The Cal that Rayon and Hong were looking at seemed to have gotten paler as well. Of course, this was only the case because Cal continued to sit inside while everybody else was getting darker from the summer sun. I don't think that's it. Only the silver kitten shook her head as she listened to her younger siblings discuss. What she was seeing was that Cal just found everything to be annoying. No, I read something in a book Rosalind gave me a while back. After learning all of the different languages of the continent, Rayon was now reading fairy tales that Rosalind was bringing for him. There was even one about a prince who fell into a curse that makes him sleep all the time. Oh my God! Hong was shocked. Rayon urgently continued to speak. Of course, it was not loud enough for the sleeping Cal to hear. I naturally checked to see if he was cursed or poisoned yesterday. Thankfully, he was not. That means that it is very likely that he is sick. My goodness. On was amazed that Rayon actually checked to see if Cal was cursed or poisoned. However, Rayon didn't care as he just continued to speak. He is even worse after coming here to Harris Village and the Forest of Darkness. It might be an unexplainable side effect of being in the Forest of Darkness. Cal's group was currently in Harris Village. Of course, the reason it became worse, as Rayon put it, was because Cal was only able to really start the slacker life once he was away from the Count, as well as other people in charge of the territory. Although there were other people in Harris Village as well, they were mainly specialists here to finish the cemeteries and the restoration of the village. There was no reason for Cal, who was only staying inside, to run into them. Cal was currently in a small 2-story house that was built after they came to the Forest of Darkness last time. Father, I want to personally see how the restoration is going since I have chosen to take responsibility for Harris Village. Cal, they are still far from completing the villa you discussed. There are a lot of houses that the specialists are staying in. I just need one of the 2-story ones. I also think it would be best for Ron's recovery to be done quietly in a remote village. All right, I understand. Cal was filled with joy as he rushed over to Harris Village after getting his father's approval. Rayon, who had no idea about this, was worried. At that moment, someone started to knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Young Master Nim, it was Deputy Butler Ainz. His voice made On and Hong stretch while Rayon opened his wings up before folding them back. Click, sigh. The door opened, and they heard Ainz sigh before flinching. Hello, Ainz. Nice to see you, Deputy Butler. Deputy Butler, I'm hungry. Rayon, Hong, and On's words made him start to frown. His cheeks were twitching while his nostrils flared. I feel like my heart is going to stop. Ainz grabbed his heart and shared his feelings. He had learned about On, Hong, and Rayon as soon as they arrived at Harris Village. It was very shocking at first, but he quickly recovered. Sigh. Cal, who was woken up, sighed as soon as he opened his eyes. Ainz looked toward Cal and started to shout while looking like he was going to cry. I never knew such lovable and gracious beings existed. I feel so lucky to serve you, young Master Nim. What the hell is he talking about? Cal just ignored Ainz's nonsense. Ainz spent more time taking care of those children who averaged 7 years old than Cal. The reason Ainz came to Cal's room every meal also seemed to be more about them than Cal. Deputy Butler, what is there to eat? Egu, Rayon Nim. We have your favorite tender beefsteak and a sweet vanilla ice cream that Rosalind Nim and Beecrox worked together to create. Oh, they were things that these children liked. Cal slowly stood up while watching them interact. Ugh, Cal let out a groan. Should I have done some stretches? His body was stiff after sitting on the rocking chair without moving for too long. However, Cal was willing to deal with this much discomfort for the slacker life. He just thoughtlessly stared at the serious Rayon and Hong before speaking to Ainz. Is everyone here? Yes, sir. Their training must have ended early today. Cal nodded his head and headed down to the first floor. There was a long table at the dining room on the first floor. Young Master Nim. Ron, you look like you are healthy now. Yes, sir. Here is your lemonade. Mm. Cal had an odd expression as he looked at the lemonade in front of him. Ron was pretty efficient with one arm as well. Cal lifted up the cup of lemonade that he had not had for a while. It was at that moment. Tang, a dish was slammed down onto the table. B. Croc started to speak with a vicious gaze. Why don't you go clean up first? Cal flinched. He then realized that he recently showered and looked around the table. They do seem pretty bad. Locke, the 10 wolf children, and Vice Captain Hilsman all looked terrible. They all looked shabby and sweaty. Haha, chef, please understand. We're so tired after training that we need to eat something first. Hilsman laughed as he made an excuse and looked toward Cal, who nodded his head. Don't worry about me and eat. As soon as he said that, Hilsman and the wolves started to eat. Choi Han was looking at them with satisfaction. Cal asked Choi Han a question. You remember I told you not to overdo it, right? The wolf children and Hilsman were currently training every day in the Forest of Darkness. They flinched at Cal's words and looked toward Choi Han. The vice captain looked extremely funny as he had frozen while holding up his fork, which was now shaking. Yes, Cal Nim, I am not overdoing it with them. We are slowly building up. Choi Han answered with a gentle smile which made Cal not doubt him at all. He also did not want to know any more about it. The wolf children were looking at Choi Han like they were looking at a drill sergeant from hell, but they still took the initiative to go find Choi Han every morning. Rather than children, they didn't seem like knights. They felt more like special forces. Cal drank his lemonade and decided to forget about useless things. Young Master Cal, will we stay here until the winter? Cal nodded his head at Rosalind's question. Probably. I am thinking about going back home in the spring. Please feel free to go wherever you need for your research. You can also let me know what ingredients you may need. Thank you, young Master Cal. It's nothing. Rosalind was currently researching and experimenting with magic in the basement of this building. Cal was giving her his full support as she would be the liege of the future magic tower. It's good to have a lot of people I can ask for favors later. Networking was a very important tool. Cal returned to his room after the meal and sat right back down on the rocking chair. Sigh. A happy sigh came out of his mouth. Cal wanted to spend the next 70 years just staring at the setting sun like this. Rayon and Hong started to whisper to each other while watching him. Is he sighing because he is so bored? I think so. He probably wants to travel. On shook her head until she noticed an item in the corner of the room starting to glow. She quickly started to speak. The video communication device is glowing. Cal was confused. The video communication device? Is someone calling from home on? Continued to speak. It is red. Cal started to frown. Cal had set it so that anybody who had a chance of asking for something annoying would make the device glow red. And currently, there was only one person who would make it glow red. It was Crown Prince Alberu Crossman. Oh, it is the Crown Prince? I will quickly connect his call. Rayon suddenly became energized as he flew toward the video communication device. You don't really need to do that. Cal sighed after seeing Rayon suddenly moving quickly and turned his rocking chair to face toward the video communication device. I am connecting him. A blue light started to surround the video communication device as soon as Rayon finished his sentence. A small screen soon appeared on top of the device. Cal could see that Crown Prince Alberu was smiling. Viscount Cal, our kingdom's treasure, did you have a nice day today? Why are you acting like this? Why wouldn't I act this way given our relationship? Just what is our relationship? Cal finally understood how Alberu must have felt when he called him Your Highness, the Star of the Kingdom. I guess we have a pretty good relationship with each other. Contrary to what he was saying, Cal's expression was as indifferent as before. However, Alberu was still smiling gently. Of course, and since we have such a good relationship, something is weird. Cal had an ominous feeling. The bliss he felt in this past month of doing nothing seemed to pass by like a scene in a movie. I'm sure it's nothing. I hope that you can do me a favor. That is difficult. I am currently very busy. Naturally, Alberu just ignored Cal's lies and said what he needed to say. If you don't help me, I will be removed from the Crown Prince position and die. Cal flinched as what Alberu had said was pretty serious. Alberu was currently gathering the mages of the Whipper Kingdom and strengthening his forces. It was the development of a force that would help protect the Roan Kingdom. Cal was helping him to make sure the kingdom and his home sweet home would be safe for him to live a peaceful life. Cal observed Alberu's face to see that his eyes seemed full of concern even though his smile was bright. He didn't even look this concerned even when Cal had figured out his identity. Cal sat up on the rocking chair and started to speak. "Let's hear what you have to say." "Just what is it you need my help for, Your Highness?" Cal felt chills on his back. He had not had this type of ominous feeling for a while. Rayon and Hong, who were not visible to the Crown Prince, were sitting next to each other with their eyes sparkling. Alberu started to speak. "Dark Elf." "I knew it." Cal expected him to say those words. Cal closed his eyes and saw his slacker life waving goodbye before it disappeared. Crown Prince Alberu, who was a quarter Dark Elf, continued to speak. "Can you go to the Dark Elf village?" Translator's note. Remember, I'm using Viscount, 1 level under Count, when Alberu calls out to Cal since it doesn't make sense for the prince to call him young master. Chapter 98. I got a feeling, too. Cal did not open his closed eyes. However, Alberu did not say anything about it. It was because he knew that he was asking for a lot by asking Cal to not just meet a Dark Elf, but to go to the Dark Elf village. "There is an item I need you to retrieve for me. The Dark Elves helping me and I are all unable to move right now." Alberu was busy getting stronger using the dead mana, while the Dark Elves helping him were under disguise getting things done. "I also need a human to go." Although this item was made by an expert, it was a one-time use item that would activate as soon as it came into contact with someone who had even a bit of Dark Elf blood. That was why it was only possible to be transported by beings who did not have the darkness attribute, like humans or animals. Cal slowly opened his eyes and leaned back onto the rocking chair. "What kind of item is it?" Cal's casual posture was one that the king would probably consider treasonous, but Alberu could only frown. "Sigh, why do I only have someone like you by my side?" "What did you say?" "I was thinking about how I have such a handsome person like you by my side." Crown Prince Alberu chuckled like he found his own words to be funny. He noticed that his true personality started to show up more and more the longer he spent with Cal. "He knows my weakness." But ironically, that was the reason Cal Henetus was the only person he could trust. Cal had at least kept his secret for the past 2 months. "If it is difficult for you to move right now, couldn't you tell your subordinate to pick it up later?" Cal knew that Alberu had many subordinates under his command. "I wish I could." Alberu let out a small sigh. He was currently secretly using the video communication device with the help of a Dark Elf mage instead of a mage from the palace. "I need to go to the Empire." "The Empire?" "The Crown Prince of the Roan Kingdom needs to go to the Empire?" Cal and Alberu made eye contact. "The Imperial Prince invited me to a celebration hosted by the Sun God twins." Celebration. This was something that did not happen in the first 5 volumes of The Birth of a Hero. Cal did not know about this celebration. However, Cal quickly understood Alberu's situation. The Sun God twins were a holy maiden and a saint who were said to be the embodiment of the Sun God. They were the holy maiden and saint that were always a part of any decent fantasy world. Cal was suddenly at a loss for words. The holy maiden and saint, who were said to be extremely good and treated as the symbol of sacrifice in normal fantasy worlds, were kind of special in The Birth of a Hero. Their level of good or bad depended on the god they represented. The Church of the Sun God is the enemy of the Dark Elves. I am worried that the chances of them figuring out that I am a quarter Dark Elf is pretty high. If that happens, a terrible situation would happen. Indeed, the Dark Elves were despised on the Western continent. As someone who had even a portion of Dark Elf blood, he would immediately be removed from the Crown Prince position. Furthermore, he might even die. Those twins would try to kill me. Cal could not respond to that. The Sun God, as the representation of the sun, hated creatures of the dark. It was because they roamed the darkness where he did not exist. His way of dealing with these creatures that he hated was to burn them to death. These twins carry the Sun God's teachings. so they would definitely rush to kill him if they ever found out his identity. That was their definition of justice. I have a bad feeling about this. The chill he was feeling this time was much worse than when he had heard the term dark elf. His entire body was covered in goosebumps. Cal subconsciously stated to speak, "Please enjoy your journey." Alberu started to laugh. "I didn't plan on taking you anyways. But why is the Imperial Prince randomly hosting such a celebration? He probably had to contact all the other kingdoms. Maybe he's crazy." Cal was at a loss of words for a moment after hearing Alberu's casual remarks. "Aren't you being too casual in front of me now, Your Highness?" Alberu shrugged his shoulders and responded back, "I think it is weird as well. Based on my information, the current Emperor and the Imperial Prince were supposed to be trying to get rid of the Church of the Sun God. That was correct." The reason Cal had an ominous feeling was because he knew that the Imperial Prince did not like the Church of the Sun God. The Imperial Prince wanted to be the one in control of the Empire in the future, so he grew his strength by pushing alchemy. Why would someone like him appreciate the Church of the Sun God that he could not control? Furthermore, the Church of the Sun God also knew that the current Emperor and Imperial Prince were trying to push them out of the Empire. But the Imperial Prince is suddenly celebrating the 150-year anniversary of the Church of the Sun God. Does that make sense to you? Not at all. You know what is even funnier? What is it? Apparently, it has also been 500 years since the alchemist's bell tower was created. They are having a celebration for that as well. Ho! Cal let out a gasp. The Church of the Sun God allowed them to celebrate alchemy at the same time? They must have, since the Imperial Prince went around inviting people. Cal and Alberu made eye contact again. Something smells fishy. Definitely fishy. Alberu started to smirk. Don't you get the feeling that something is going to happen during the celebration? It definitely felt that way. Either that, or there was a hidden agenda for this celebration. I'm not sure. However, Cal feigned ignorance. One of the themes of fantasy worlds was religion. Cal was not interested in religion and did not think much about it. I just don't want to get involved with them. It'll be annoying. It would be fine as long as he wasn't being dragged left and right. Cal's gaze headed past the video screen and toward Rayon. Rayon tilted his head, wondering why Cal was looking at him. If religion or anything else tries to boss me around. No, it is impossible for that to happen. Something like that should not happen as long as he was with Rayon, Choi Han, and Rosalind. If all else fails, Cal thought that he could just blow it up like he did with the island. Cal was a bit more courageous now than before. Liar. However, feigning ignorance did not work against the Crown Prince. Anyways, I need your help. I will definitely reward you accordingly later on. Cal did not immediately respond to Alberu's sincere request. Alberu probably agreed to go to the Empire because his position did not allow him to send the second or third prince. Cal finally started to speak after a while. Your Highness, the star of our kingdom. Alberu held back a sigh. It sounded like Cal was going to reject him. However, the continuing words made Alberu start to smile. Where is it? No matter how much Cal thought about it, he was the only one, other than the few people helping the Crown Prince in the dark, that could be trusted enough to do this, which meant that he had no choice. He could not let the Crown Prince die. Alberu quietly laughed before starting to speak. The West. You will need to go west. Alberu's answer triggered a location in Cal's mind. It was one of the 5 forbidden regions. The Dark Elves live in the Land of Death. You really are very smart. The Land of Death was similar in name to the Gorge of Death, but it was different from the other forbidden regions that were created naturally. The Land of Death was the product of history. It was where the necromancers of the past waged the final battle with their skeleton armies. Located in the desert, the Land of Death had red sand during the day and black sand during the night. New sand dunes were created every day. The Dark Elf village is located there. You just need to get the item from the chief of the village. Your Highness. Cal had heard that the Land of Death, a desert, was so hot that even plants could not survive, and it was currently summer. What is it? A slightly gentle voice came out of Alberu's mouth. He was not pretending nor strategizing, it was his honest voice. Cal cautiously asked his question. Can I not go? Silence filled the room for a moment. Cal then nodded his head. I'll go since I said I'll go. I will give you a guide. Since it is the desert, you need to be with someone who knows the way. It was obvious what kind of guide he was going to get. She is my mother's sister, so my aunt. My aunt is the only dark elf who is currently able to move. Alberu added on, it may be just one person, but she is the one in charge of all of the dark elves under my command. You can trust her abilities. Cal nodded his head with a serious expression. He seemed so sincere that Alberu even felt sorry for Cal. Your Highness. Yes, Viscount Cal. I can ask you for any travel expenses, right? May I buy a lot of magic ice? I really hate the heat. Furthermore, can I pick the reward again? This time I will choose money. Cal asked many questions at once. Alberu quietly observed Cal before giving him an answer. Sure, do whatever you want. Cal started to smile as he responded back. I'm sure you are already aware, but I always complete my tasks with 120% efficiency, so I expect an even greater reward. I know. That is why I said do whatever you want. Yes, sir. Please leave it to me. Sure, I'll trust you. Cal and Alberu discussed a few more things before ending their call. The light disappeared from the video communication device before Rayon and Hong approached him. Human, are we traveling again? The desert is very hot. You can't faint. Rayon looked at Cal with a serious expression after hearing Hong's words. Cal didn't care as he pointed back to the video communication device and gave Rayon an order. Reconnect the video communication device. Again. Yes, but somewhere else. Where? Rayon could see Cal smiling at his question. There was another strong religion other than the Church of the Sun God in this world. It was a very strong church. The Church of the Moon or the Church of Darkness, no. It was the Church of Eternal Darkness, an existence that made people never see the sun ever again. Death. Death was stronger than the sun. Connect me to the Stan estate. The Crown Prince probably knew about the power of death, but he could not speak to the Church of Death because he could not trust them and didn't want to risk his identity being revealed. However, Cal knew a priestess that the Church of the God of Death had excommunicated, and many people did not know about. Even after being excommunicated, she was still treasured by the God of Death. The Church of the God of Death currently did not have a holy maiden nor a saint. Why was that the case, young Master Cal? Hello, Cage, it's been a while. The crazy priestess Cage. Are you bored these days? Cage observed Cal for a moment after hearing his question before finally shaking her head. I had a bad feeling about today. I don't remember the contents of my dream, but there was this bitter taste in my mouth. It's a good thing that Taylor will soon become the official successor, even without my help. Cal had heard as well. Taylor Stan, the eldest child of Marquis Stan, had recovered his position and would soon be announced as the official successor. So, I have nothing to do. The crazy priestess smiled as she asked Cal, what can I do for you? Cal quickly responded like her response was obvious. We need to go to the land of death. I will prepare right away. Cage did not seem to hesitate at all, even after he said that they were going to the land of death. She really was the type who would put her life on the line for her best friend Taylor. Cal now understood why the God of Death would continue to bless her, even after she was excommunicated. She embodied something that was even greater than death. I have to return the favors you've done for us. Cal smiled to respond. See you soon, Cage. He smiled once more before the communication ended. Cal then immediately got up. Human, good, you need to move to be healthy. What are you talking about? Cal walked past Rayon and opened the door. He could see Hands coming down the corridor with a tray of fruits. Hands. Yes, sir. Tell everyone to gather, except the wolves. Mr. Ron and the chef as well? Cal didn't know that the Dark Elf village was in the land of death, where the necromancers were last seen. It gave him a feeling that he might find the necromancers there too. Of course, he was only 50% sure about it, but wouldn't it be better to be prepared just in case? Yes, tell everyone to come since we are heading out. 2 days later, Cal headed out of the Hennetus territory after only getting to enjoy the slacker life for a month. Cal's crew's 2 carriages were heading toward the capital. Chapter 99. I got a feeling 3. Cal did not enter the capital and just stayed at the village closest to the capital. the land of death and dark elves. What do you think? Cage looked toward Cal after hearing his question. Cal, who was fanning himself because of the heat, seemed very relaxed. Someone might think that he was here to enjoy tea time. What do you mean, what do I think? Of course, I will go. She was just as relaxed. I thought it might be something big since I didn't remember my dream. But the information she got from Cal was not very big of a deal. I just need to bless the item that you get from the Dark Elves, young Master Cal. Yes, once a day until we reach the capital. I want you to give the God of Death's blessing on that item every day. Dark Elves and the God of Death's blessing. Cal's mind was currently a complicated mess. Dark Elves were weak against the Sun God, and the God of Death was strong against the Sun God. Although the Sun God had a significantly larger number of believers, the strength of a god did not rely on the number of believers. Young Master Nim. Yes. Is someone going to go kill the bishop of the Church of the Sun God? You don't think I'm the one to do that? Young Master Cal, you have no reason to fight against the bishop. You are the type of person the Church of the Sun God would like. You are wealthy, have an ancient power, and most important, you are a good person. Cal did not respond to Cage's statement. Other than the part about being a good person, Cal was definitely the type of person the Church of the Sun God would like. They heard a knock on the door at that moment. Cal stood up after hearing the voice that followed. Let's go. Hurry, let's go. It was a husky and strong voice. Cage, I have someone to introduce to you. Cal went over and opened the door. Oh, you had a guest. There was a woman who was about Cal's height and visibly sleek even though she was wearing a robe. She had met up with Cal 2 days ago. She is part of my group. Oh, really? Cage observed the woman who went back and forth using formal and informal speech with Cal. The woman asked Cal a question. You told her everything? Of course. I told her where we are going and what we are bringing back. The woman smiled at Cal's answer. It meant that that was all that he had told Cage. Cal was also going back and forth between formal and informal speech with this woman. The moment Cage wondered who this woman was, the woman walked over briskly and reached her hand out. Nice to meet you. My name is Tasha. She was a refreshingly beautiful woman. Cage shook her hand. At that moment, Cal closed the door and Tasha's face quickly moved to Cage's ear. I am a dark elf, the guide for this trip. The two women made eye contact. I just changed my skin color right now. Tasha then looked at Cage like she was observing her reaction. At that moment, Cage smiled and introduced herself. Nice to meet you, Tasha. My name is Cage, an excommunicated priestess of the God of Death. The term God of Death made the dark elf Tasha look toward Cal. Cal shook his head to show that he had not talked to Cage about the Crown Prince. How about a celebration since we have a new party member? Do you have alcohol? We have all sorts of drinks. Cal looked toward the two women who were casually chatting with each and started to speak. Tasha, let's go. Tasha and Cal made eye contact. Everybody in Cal's group knew that Tasha was a dark elf. However, only Cal, Rayon, On, and Hong knew that she was the Crown Prince's aunt. Will we be using the teleportation office in the capital? Tasha shook her head at Cage's question. My disguise magic may get detected. It looks like we will need to use a carriage. Ah, I have an identification card. Tasha showed her ID to Cage. Everything is fake other than my name and age. Cage found the refreshingly honest Tasha to be odd but likable. She then looked at Tasha's ID. Tasha, 29 years old. Tasha then started to chuckle. Ah, of course, you need to add a 0 at the end of my age. 290 years old. Cage looked toward Tasha and asked, Can I call you Annie? I knew I liked you. You are only the third human who hasn't called me a granny after hearing my age. Please call me whatever you want, Cage. Okay, Annie. Cal had his arms crossed while looking at the two women. Cage seemed calm right now, but she was a carefree person who liked to drink. Tasha seemed to be the same way. It should be okay, right? He started to speak to the two women who had their arms around each other and were looking at him. Let's hurry since it's so hot. Cal could hear Rayon's voice in his head at that moment. Liar, weak human, you are not hot at all thanks to temperature magic. I even made you a cooling artifact. Rayon was right. Cal was definitely lying. Cal currently felt like he was standing outside in the middle of fall. Anyways, I will follow you while invisible. I am always by your side. It meant that there was someone to ask for magic any time it got hot. This was even better than having an air conditioner. I guess we need to go to the Caro Kingdom. Cal got on the carriage headed toward Caro Kingdom, which was located to the south of Breck Kingdom and to the northwest of the Morgan Empire. A new golden plaque that the Crown Prince had given him was in his inner pocket. Click. The carriage door opened with a small noise. The heat is no joke. The dry breeze rushed through the outfit that was tailored for use in the desert. It was still hot even though the sun was setting. Young Master Nim, would you like a cold lemonade? No need. You can just drink it. Ron, Beecrox, and Choi Han, who was carrying on and Hong, got out after Cal. Tasha jumped off the driver's seat at Cal's calling. Cal's group was currently at the western boundary of the Caro Kingdom, at a village in the Dubori territory that was right next to the Land of Death. Is the Land of Death right outside the western gate? Yes, it is. At that moment, Rayon's excited voice filled Cal's mind. The desert. This is my first time seeing it. Although I read about it, it is really different in person. Human, you really need to travel to experience everything for yourself. Cal flinched before ignoring the scary things that Rayon was saying. Tasha saw Cal flinch and had a bitter smile as she started to ask. It is weird, isn't it? I suppose it is. Cal agreed with her statement. No humans ever returned from the Land of Death. That fact, as well as the necromancer legend, gave this land the name Land of Death. Tasha started to smile. It is weird that there is a gate when nobody would want to go out there, right? Rosalind got off the carriage and responded. It is definitely weird. I agree. Cage felt the same way. Tasha opened her mouth to answer, but Cal pointed to the castle wall before she could do so. I think I know why. The castle wall, well, a shabby and old wall that barely deserved the title castle wall, that Cal pointed to had multiple people trying to climb it. Capture them, catch them and kill them? They could hear the citizens screaming while the soldiers were laughing. What is going on? Tasha smiled bitterly at Choi Han's question. She looked around before quietly answering. The Liege of the Dubori territory taxes his people at a very high rate that is almost impossible for people in a village like this right next to the desert to handle. Past the desert is another kingdom and the sea that will allow them to go wherever they want. There was no need to explain any further. The people trying to climb the wall looked like very poor peasants. Cal started to speak. They made the gate to catch the people running away. Also to catch the people trying to sneak out. The Land of Death and the people trying to escape to the desert to run away from the unbearable tax rates. Of course, there are not too many people who attempt it. However, you do see at least one on a consistent basis since the Dubori family has ruled over this region and continued to raise the taxes over and over. There were always bound to be many more bad rulers than good. Let's go to the gate. Cal headed to the gate that was pretty small for a castle gate. There were multiple soldiers and 2 knights at the gate. What can we do for you? The stiff knight looked toward Cal's group. The reason he was respectful was because their outfits looked fancy. Cal peeked over to the soldiers before looking back at the knight. The 2 citizens who were trying to climb the wall to escape to the Land of Death were currently being beaten to death by the soldiers. Please let me live? You stupid bastards. You think we won't be here because it is dinner time. Maybe you'll have made it if we went to dinner a bit earlier, you stupid bastards. I'm sorry, Knight Nim, I'm very sorry. It's because I have no money. The sounds of punching and kicking could be heard. We are trying to go outside the gate. The knight flinched at Cal's calm demeanor before putting on a twisted smile. Cal handed a gold coin to the knight, who quickly put it in his pocket and shouted to the soldier at the gate. Open the gate. The knight looked at the man, who seemed to be a wealthy noble, and started to smile. Please return alive. It was the best thing to say to the people heading to the Land of Death. Screech, the sound of the gate opening, reached Cal's ear. He looked toward the slowly opening gate as the knight started to speak again. I pray that you do not end up more fodder to dye those red sand. Cal could see the red sand that was brighter than the sunset and his own hair. It was like a mountain made of droplets of blood. I will make sure to do that, Cal responded to the knight. The knight caught the item that Cal threw with confusion. Cal looked toward the knight and started to speak. "Let them go." Ah, the knight had a twisted smile on his face again. A proper knight would not have opened this gate without proper authorization. However, he and the other knight and the soldiers were all the same. They did not care much about the rules of the region. Bad rulers were always going to lead to bad subordinates. He, I guess you are a good young master. Just getting involved in things for no reason. Cal saw the two peasants weakly walking away before starting to walk toward the gate. He gave one final statement to the knight. "I will give you another gold coin if I return alive." "Kekek, I will look forward to it." Cal received the knight's respectful answer, which was actually full of mockery, and entered the desert. Screech bang! The castle gate closed again without giving Cal any moment to change his mind. "What are you looking at?" Cal bluntly asked the group, who were all looking at him. He ignored the complicated expression on Choi Han's face. He was already not happy with what he just did, so he didn't want to pay attention to other people's emotions as well. "Tasha, hurry up and guide us there." Although someone might flinch at Cal's cold tone, Tasha had a refreshing smile on her face as she stood next to Cal. Of course. Young Master Cal, you are such a good person." "Good person? No, just irresponsible." Cal could see that Tasha was about to say something else and quickly added on, "Hurry up." My, I understand." Tasha moved in front of Cal. "Let us walk for a bit." Tasha quickly darted forward. Cal lightly kicked off the sandy ground after her. Tap. Cal's body quickly shot forward with the kick. Choi Han followed behind Cal with On and Hong in his arms. At the same time, Rosalind used haste magic on herself and Cage to follow after them. "Father, do you need me to support you?" "Nonsense. Your dad is still just as nimble." Ron and Beacrox were the last to move. Ron was just as fast as Choi Han and moved through the desert easier than anybody else. "Isn't it fun to run in the evening? Ha. Let's get as far as possible from the gate," Tasha shouted as she continued to run. Cal was in awe after watching her run. She was not running with magic or even physical strength. It is an elemental. Dark elves were creatures of dark who lived according to the laws of nature. They were still able to handle elementals because they were elves. That was why they were still able to call themselves creatures of nature, even while having the dark attribute. PSSH. The sand shot up into the air following Cal's group's movement. Cal was amazed at the red sand that really seemed like blood. Cal's group ran behind Tasha for a while longer. Tasha finally stopped after they were pretty far from the castle gate. She looked at the sunset while speaking to the group. "Please take in the sight in front of your eyes." This sight, the moment Cal was confused about what Tasha was saying, the sun set completely and disappeared. Wow. Meow. Meow, the entire group was filled with awe. The moment the sun set, the sand started to turn black starting from the horizon. It was an amazing sight to watch. It really is unexplainable. The black sand was glowing. It is the same color as me. This desert is beautiful and handsome just like me. Rayon seemed excited as well. Cal followed up with his own sentiments. "It looks like night came down to the ground." "Correct." Tasha was smiling. "If night descended on Earth, where will the Earth have to go?" At that moment, a cool wind blew past them. The sand started to roll with the wind, creating multiple sand dunes. Sigh. Cal understood Tasha's question. He looked at the black sand that was moving with the wind as he answered, "If night descended on Earth." Cal's gaze moved over to Tasha. "Then the dark elves must have gone under the night." "Correct." Tasha took off the necklace she was wearing and threw it to the ground. "Ah." Rosalind let out a gasp. Tasha's appearance quickly changed to one with a black skin that was glowing as much as the black sand, black pupils, and black hair. It was like she was a black pearl that had become a person. Tasha, who had looked like a typical citizen of the continent until now, returned to her true appearance and started to shout. "I will now guide you to the Dark Elf City." Wind was swirling in her hand as the elemental made the sand move even faster. They were located in the middle of the desert, outside of anyone's visible gaze. A large door appeared on the ground where a sand dune used to stand. Tasha pulled up on that circular door with all of her strength. Underground, Rosalind was in awe. If night descended on Earth, the Earth just needed to go down farther. I will go first. Can the last person please pull the door closed as they come? Tasha lightly jumped into the hole. I will close the door at the end. Cal took a step back after hearing Choi-han speak. The hole was so dark that he could not see anything. I won't fall to my death, right? Human, let's go, should be fine since Rayon is with me. Cal looked at everyone observing him as he jumped into the hole. Oh, Cal was amused. It was a slide. He could feel something on his back. Rayon was sticking to him while riding the slide. Human, this is fun, I want to do it again. Cal continued to ride the slide down into what felt like the endless abyss. He could finally see a light at the end. It was a very bright light. Poof. Cal landed on a soft pile of cotton. The dark elf city appeared in front of his eyes. There were tons of shiny lights on the ceiling that was supported by large pillars. A beautiful underground city that had natural elements like water and trees was in front of Cal. Someone reached their hand out to help him up. It was Tasha. Welcome to the City of Death. The City of Death. Cal took Tasha's hand to get up. It's nice. Tasha started to smile at his response. Translator's note. Alberu had said Dark Elf Village, but from here on it is Dark Elf City, so I will leave it Dark Elf City from here on. Chapter 100. I got a feeling for. Puff, puff, puff. The process repeated with everyone falling onto the cotton and getting back up. They all had the same reaction as they got up. Wow. Meow. Wow. They couldn't help but be in awe of this underground city. They had imagined a dark and gloomy place, but the city in front of their eyes was shining brightly. There were many shiny lights roaming the high ceiling, with a creek to one side and fields filled with grains on both sides. There were also tall trees forming forests in some areas. How could such a place? Rosalind seemed to be in disbelief. She didn't have any bias against the Dark Elves, however. She still had some negative feelings when she was told that a hidden city was in the land of death. Knowing that the Dark Elves gain their power from the dead, someone like Rosalind, who uses mana from nature, couldn't help but have negative feelings about them. At that moment, Cage mumbled next to her. Death is a part of nature as well. She looked toward Cage, who seemed to find this sight to be normal. It was also normal to Cal. Elementals? Cal looked toward Tasha, the power of nature. She meant that it was the elementals. Although they derived their strength from dead mana, Dark Elves were still creatures of nature. As both creatures of the dark and part of the elf race, they were able to handle elementals while still using dead mana. Tasha opened her arms as she saw some Dark Elves approaching them. Long time no see, the three Dark Elves started to run after hearing her voice. You punk. You didn't send us a single letter for 5 years, and then you just pop up with a long time no see. Two of them berated Tasha, while the third respectfully greeted Cal. Nice to meet you. I will first guide you to your residence. Sean, long time no see. Please follow me. Tasha came and greeted Sean, who just ignored her. Awa, come on, Sean, are you mad at me? Do you have any luggage? If you do, we will transport it for you. He flat out ignored her. Cal smiled before responding to Sean. We do not have any luggage. Please lead the way. Sean quietly observed Cal, who was smiling gently. I heard you were a noble. Please feel free to speak informally. Sure, I'll do that. Cal was not one to reject such an offer. Cal's group and the three Dark Elves entered the Dark Elves' stronghold, otherwise known as the City of Death. They could see more clearly once they entered into the city. There were even more reasons for them to be shocked. Isn't it more developed than most cities? Tasha asked Cal's group with a proud expression on her face. The city was pretty developed, such that it was at the level of most large cities in the Roan Kingdom. However, Cal did not respond to her statement. He was busy looking at something else. There are people here too? Tasha continued to smile. I see. They saw other Dark Elves as soon as they entered the city as expected, but there was approximately 1 human for every 10 Dark Elves. The Land of Death was one of the 5 forbidden regions. It was said that nobody who went into the Land of Death made it back alive. Their deaths were said to have made the sand as red as it was. Some people even thought that the curse of the necromancers led people to die in the Land of Death. Cal started to speak. There was a reason the people who ran away into the desert never came back. The Dark Elves who were with them started to smile. Tasha shrugged her shoulders as she responded. We couldn't let them just die, especially since the Dark Elves have a similar history of running away. As people who have had to run for their lives, they understood the people who ran away to this desert known as the Land of Death. They were so desperate that they ran away, even though they knew it would mean their death. They had felt the same way before. Cal was really in awe now. Amazing. It really was amazing. Although they had never harmed humans, Dark Elves were chased out by people because the places they lived were associated with death. But even after receiving such treatment, they were able to accept people within their midst. It was very different compared to the elves, who hated getting involved with humans. But this was probably why nature and the elementals did not choose to leave them. I understand why nature loves the Dark Elves. Nature did not shun the Dark Elves. Instead, it created a space in its arms for the Dark Elves. Cal did not miss the fact that the expressions on the faces of the humans in this city were bright. Well, it is all thanks to the unique nature of this land. Cal looked toward the Dark Elf named Sean, who pushed up his glasses and continued to speak. His gaze landed on Rosalind for a moment before moving away. This is the Land of Death. We do not know the reason behind it, but an aura of death resides in this desert. We noticed that a phenomenon occurs twice a year where a small amount of dead mana rises up from the sand. Cal motioned with his eyes to Cage, who nodded her head. This desert is full of the aura of death. However, it is not evil. The aura of death follows the laws of nature and simply resides here for a moment before dissipating. You must be a priestess Nim of the Church of the God of Death. I have been excommunicated. Sean flinched at Cage's response. On the other hand, Cal nodded at her words and shared his sentiments. Maybe this is a land granted by the God of Death. Just because you need dead mana as a creature of darkness does not mean that you are evil. Cal continued to speak to the Dark Elves who were looking at him. There are many humans who are crazy or evil. Wouldn't it be the same thing? You are right, young Master Nim. Ron agreed with Cal. Sean peeked toward Ron before putting on an awkward smile as Ron smiled at him. Tasha looked at everyone before finishing it with a beautiful conclusion. Anyways, it is a good place to live. That was the correct answer. Cal arrived at their residence, which was a pretty decent inn. This is the first time we have had guests here. Really? Sean nodded his head. We built this inn for visitors in case we find any other Dark Elf villages. However, we have not managed to find one yet. Furthermore, people who come here are not really in a state to stay at an inn. What kind of state are they usually in? Sean had no problem answering Choi Han's question. They are malnourished or close to death. Some of them are even in a state of fear after coming to the Land of Death and meeting Dark Elves like us. That is why we immediately moved them to the hospital ward. Sean approached the innkeeper. You have your first guests. Oh, Hyung Nim. I finally get to have guests. The innkeeper was human. The old man, who seemed to be in his 70s, clapped as he welcomed Cal's group. Agu, welcome esteemed guests. I may not look like it, but among the humans, I have spent the longest time in this city. I know the layout as well as the Dark Elf Hyung Nims, Tasha whispered to the group. For your reference, Sean and I are the same age. Cal shook hands with the innkeeper. Owner, take good care of us while we are here. Of course, welcome to the City of Life. City of Life. The old man smiled brightly after hearing Cal's confusion. Yes, sir. That is what we call it. That name is more fitting, Cal answered before turning toward Sean in order to ask a question. Now that we know where we are staying, I want to go shopping right away. They are already waiting for you. The market was in a 3-story building. Only Tasha and Sean led Cal and Choi Han there. The rest of the group was waiting for them at the inn. Of course, the invisible Rayon was with them as well. This is the building for the city's administrators. They were definitely different compared to the elves, who lived like hermits in the wild. The Dark Elves seemed to have a similar economic structure to humans. There were many young humans who were working in administration with the Dark Elves as well. Tasha noticed what Cal was looking at. The majority of the humans who come here do not know how to read or write. Most of them wanted to learn technical skills or farming. However, all of the children that are born in this city are given the same education as the young Dark Elves. Cal had wondered in the past about which part of the western continent would be most similar to Earth. This is probably it. This underground city was the closest to Earth. It might be because it was a place where people who ran away from tyrants gathered together. This is the mayor's office. They could see a simple wooden door. Sean pointed at the door and started to speak. Our city is usually managed by the eldest dark elf. The current mayor Nim is 521 years old. It was at that moment, click, 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 they heard the doorknob urgently turning, and finally, bang. The door to the mayor's room burst open. Mayor Nim, an old dark elf who had a white beard and white hair that was a steep contrast to his dark skin, appeared. However, the well-dressed and tidy dark elf's face was completely pale. This feeling? Sean became anxious. He peeked toward Cal's group before rushing over to the mayor. Mayor Nim, what is going on? Tasha rushed over as well. Her attitude was a bit different than Sean's. Grandpa, what is wrong? Grandpa, that word made Cal flinch. Was she calling him Grandpa because she was close to the mayor? Or was she actually related to the mayor? If they were family, he would finally understand why this dark elf city seemed to have a deep relationship with the crown prince. Your granddaughter is here for the first time in a while. Why do you look so surprised? Tasha really was related to the mayor. I knew someone like the crown prince would have a pretty noble background. Crown Prince Albrew seemed to have a pretty hefty background. Cal looked toward Tasha and the mayor with a shocked expression. At that moment, Cal and the mayor made eye contact. The mayor seemed to have only been staring at Cal the whole time. The mayor started to speak. Perhaps. His voice was shaking. Cal had a bad feeling about this. The old dark elf took out a handkerchief with his shaking hand and wiped his forehead before taking a deep breath. Sir, I heard that you had a dragon's dead mana on you. Something is weird. Although Cal was a noble, he was not at the level for someone like the mayor to speak respectfully toward him. Young Master Nim, are you perhaps a dragon? Sean and Tasha both froze up, while Choi Han's pupils started to shake. No. Cal was very stern. I am not a dragon. Sean and Tasha looked relieved after hearing Cal's response. However, the mayor was different. I definitely feel a dragon Nim's aura around you, young Master Nim. It is coming from your vicinity, sir. The power that presides over nature is coming from you. That old dark elf is pretty smart. Rayon, who was floating behind Cal while still invisible, was amused. Cal did not care as he was honestly answering the mayor. I am not a dragon. That is very odd. The dark elf finally calmed down a bit. He continued to wipe away his sweat as he mumbled. I have met a dragon Nim in the past and felt the same feeling that I am feeling now. My elemental, which met that dragon Nim with me, says it is similar as well. This time, it was Cal's turn to flinch. What did he say he saw? And his elementals saw it with him. The elementals were the most difficult beings to scam. What? A dragon. Rayon seemed to be very interested as well. At 521 years old, the mayor definitely lived long enough to have seen a dragon at least once. It was at that moment. Mayor Nim, I am here as you requested. Cal thought it was a GPS speaking at that moment. The calm yet robotic woman's voice continued to speak. Shall I wait here? Cal turned around only to see a person who was covered from head to toe with a black robe. At that moment, he heard Rayon's voice in his head. She is a human, so why does she have the darkness attribute? I knew it. There were only a few ways for a human to obtain the darkness attribute. His intuition had been right. However, there was something he needed to take care of first. Are you really not a dragon, Nim? Yes, Mr. Mayor. Cal let out a sigh after seeing that the mayor was still having a hard time believing him. Cal entered the office and his group followed him inside. Cal looked toward Choi Han, who understood what Cal wanted and quickly closed the door. Cal started to speak inside the quiet office. Rayon,